Is it time?
It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day.
We'll know in a very short period of time, but it looks like it could be something that will be not good. Believe me, not good.
I see issue with that. And again, hey.
You're not going to be able to insult your way to the presidency. That's not going to happen.
I don't know who created Pokemon Go, but I'm trying to figure out how we get them to have Pokemon go to the polls.
I'm Ted Cruz, and my pronoun is kiss my ass.
So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time in terms of what we need to do to lay these wires, what we need to do to create these jobs.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to put
Not good. Believe me, not good.
Hello, dissidents. Welcome, one and all, to a Thursday edition of the Do Dissidents podcast. Keaton Weiss, pardon me, here with Russell Dobula, of course.
Hello.
Thanks, everybody, very much for being here. Appreciate you all for filing in. Big crowd to start things off here. 568 strong in the YouTube chat. That's great for a noonday show. 326 strong on the Rumble side. This is the first noon show we've done since I think the time switch, which is why I'm all whited out here on this side. Even though I have blinds coming in, the sunlight is still coming in, and I don't know why. So I apologize if I'm a little whiter than usual.
You're always a pasty motherfucker.
That's right. I am pale. So that's the thing. I am fair-skinned. But today I'm looking especially fair-skinned. There's not much I could do about it in the short term, unless it gets a little darker outside over the course of the show. But thank you all very much for being here. Appreciate you all. Hope you're all doing good on this Thursday. We got quite a lot to get to. It was Liberation Day yesterday. Liberation Day. I felt liberated. Did you feel liberated? Is everybody feeling liberated?
I thought I was feeling liberated. I think it was something I ate, though.
Yeah, I could do that to you.
Yeah. Very, very liberated. I haven't really felt this way, the way I feel right now, aside from overweening liberation, since the '08 crash. I was home that day, and I had news on in the background, and it was just this increasing alarm from the anchors as it just kept going and going and going.
Right.
Today feels kind of like that day.
Oh, yeah?
It kind of feels like a jig is up day.
That's a nice memory.
Yeah. That was, I when that happened, that drove me into a poverty I never thought I would see again.
Wow.
Like I was poor like I was after college. Like I never thought I would be that poor again in my life.
Is that because
where
you were
like
invested?
I didn't know how I was going to eat kind of poor?
Is that because you were invested in the market, or just because things went bad?
No, I didn't have a penny in the market back then. I was because I had theater down in the village, and instantly after that day, phone stopped ringing immediately.
I bet. Yeah,
immediately. Like no bookings, nothing. I was wiped out within 2 months. The whole, and all my money was in that. I had like no savings. I was living right at the edge. Nah, man, I was literally no money, no food.
Well, bringing back those times. Looks like we're on the road to old times. All right, why don't we jump in? We got Liberation Day. That's first up.
All right. Remember, before we get into it, you want to talk about pleasant memory? I remember I was dating this very beautiful Greek girl, and a guy in her building who she had rejected came up to her and said, "Why you with this guy? He look like homeless." Because I couldn't afford clothes, man. There were holes in my pants.
Right.
Like, really, I looked like a fucking vagabond.
And that was post 2008. Wow.
Oh yeah, man. I couldn't afford clothes for 2 years.
Wow.
So my clothes were just like falling apart, like everything had rips in it. Yeah, it was pretty rough. All right. So hey, but I believe that those times can come again.
There you go.
So here we are on our Liberation Day. Trump unleashes 10% global tariffs with higher reciprocal rates. By the numbers, the reciprocal tariffs hit dozens of nations, including some of the country's largest trading partners. Imports from the European Union, Japan, and South Korea will be subject to tariffs of 20% or higher. Imports from Vietnam are subject to a tariff rate of 46%, while Taiwanese imports will face 32% tariffs. The reciprocal tariffs have been tailored based on how unfairly the administration says the countries treat U.S. exporters. The rates, calculated by Trump's top economists at the Council of Economic Advisors, are meant to hit back at the tariff and non-tariff trade barriers. Trump said the published rates are half as high as the originally calculated levels. The trade actions unveiled on Wednesday come on top of 25% tariffs on foreign-made vehicles and auto parts announced last week that will take effect at midnight. Steel and aluminum imports face similar tariff rates, with taxes threatened on lumber and pharmaceuticals. The 25% tariffs applied on Canadian and Mexican imports that don't comply with the USMCA trade agreement will go into effect until the nations impose tighter border controls, senior officials said. When those tariffs are removed, the North American countries will be subject to the baseline tariffs. Now, we're going to get into this a little bit later, but at least in the auto sector, they did not impose the tariffs on Canada and Mexico. I think because they had enough auto industry CEOs screaming in their ear about how many of their parts come from Canada and Mexico, like they literally would not have been able to build cars. So this is Eric Doherty here, who's very excited about this announcement. Trump was just handed a large poster, and he's now going through every country with unfair tariffs against the U.S. We are so back.
Yeah.
Now, I thought I recognized the name. Oh, yeah, that's the Eric Doherty who was just caught taking a rather small amount of money to lie to his audience, undermine Maha, and claim that unlimited sugar is a freedom issue.
That's right. He's a soda shill.
He's a soda shill. He took some money on behalf of Big Soda to undermine Bobby's Maha agenda. So I don't know why he still has any kind of an audience, why he's commenting on anything. Maybe he got paid by Lutnick to post this. Who knows? Who knows? But here's our illustrious president announcing and breaking down the tariffs.
So if you look at that, China, first row, China, 67%. That's tariffs charged to the USA, including currency manipulation and trade barriers. So 67%, I think you can, for the most part, see it. Those with good eyes, with bad eyes. We didn't want to bring, it's very windy out here. We didn't want to bring out the big charts because it had no chance of standing. Fortunately, we came armed with a little smaller chart.
Yeah, there we go.
So 67%, so we're going to be
good.
Charging a discounted reciprocal tariff of 34%. I think, in other words, they charge us, we charge them less. So how can anybody be upset? They will be, because we never charge anybody anything. But now we're going to charge. European Union, they're very tough, very, very tough traders. You know, you think of European Union, very friendly. They rip us off. It's so sad to see. It's so pathetic. 39%, we're going to charge them 20%, so we're charging them essentially half. Vietnam, great negotiators, great people. They like me, I like them. The problem is they charge us 90%. We're going to charge them 46%
Yeah, we,
tariff.
you know, but Rambo went over
Taiwan,
there and he
where
set things straight.
they took all of our computer chips and semiconductors. We used to be the king, right? We were everything. We had all of it. Now we have almost none of it, except the biggest company is coming in. We're going to end up with almost 40%. Lee Zeldin's working to get their approvals. And it's an amazing company. Mr. Wei, of one of the great companies of the world, actually. They're coming in from Taiwan, and they're going to build one of the biggest plants in the world, maybe the biggest for that. But 64%, we're going to charge them 32%. Japan, very, very tough. Great people. And again, I don't blame the people for doing it. I think they're very smart in doing it. I blame the people that sat right in that Oval Office, right over there, right behind the Resolute desk or whichever desk they.
Okay, so very very excited crowd, very excited about these tariffs. So we laid tariffs on 180 different countries and territories, including a few uninhabited islands. One island where the only population is actually a U.S. military base. I don't know if that means that they get tariffed if they send their own equipment back to the United States. Maybe they have to pay a duty on it. We've tariffed small islands off the coast of Australia, where Australia gets one tariff, the territory gets another higher tariff. Doesn't seem very sensible in many ways. You got Costa Rica there gets a 10% tariff. Now, these tariffs, remember, are on top of the baseline tariffs. There's that baseline 10%, and this is slapped on top. According to some reporting we're going to read, China overall comes out to about 46%, the tariff. So yeah, you know, St. Kitts ripping us off, man. The Sudan. Yeah, those Sudanese, man. Those Sudanese. Libya. We're going to start tariffing the slave markets that we help them recreate there in Libya. So this is Dan Ives, no socialist by any means. This guy is an analyst for Wedbush Securities. The tariff numbers are a convoluted set of calculations that appear to be taking each nation's trade surplus by their total imports with the U.S. If a ninth grader in high school presented this tariff chart to a teacher in a basic economics class, the teacher would laugh and say, "Sit down." And somebody represented that in graphics form. Apparently, a lot of very smart people are saying that the numbers themselves make absolutely no sense, and you'd have to be pretty clueless to come up with the numbers that they did. You know, it certainly does not suggest they exercised the utmost care in deciding how to arrange these tariffs, that they literally tariffed an island with only a U.S. military base on it. That doesn't really scream competence. So here's Trump putting any of those fears to rest by explaining the term groceries and his understanding of it.
It's an old-fashioned term that we use, groceries. I used it in the campaign. It's such an old-fashioned term, but a beautiful term, groceries. It sort of says a bag with different things in it. Groceries went through the roof. And I campaigned on that. I talked about the word groceries for a lot.
Yeah, it's nobody uses that word anymore. Gosh, I haven't heard that since I was in grade school.
It's an old-fashioned term.
Yeah. It's like that song, old-fashioned love song. I like that song. Sometimes I play that song for Melania, and she just bursts out crying. I don't know why.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I
why.
heard.
So I say, are you thinking about that guy Ivan, the one you actually loved before you decided to go for the money? Are you thinking about Ivan again? She never answers.
I heard one of the islands they tariffed had no people on it. I heard it was just like an
there
island
is
of penguins
there is an uninhabited island that they tariffed. Yes. Yeah. So you know, I'm sorry, that doesn't suggest that they really thought this through, that they didn't notice that they were tariffing islands with no people,
no one on them. Yeah,
islands with 1,600 people, islands
they've been
with
ripping
only
us off.
Americans on them.
Who, seagulls? Been ripping you off?
Those penguins, they're very tricky. They're very tricky. That's why I stopped going to the Central Park Zoo every time I go there. I go to the penguin cage. I come out without my wallet. So a lot of Republicans were very skeptical and critical of this. John Kennedy waxes more philosophical than you would expect him capable of, because Trump's saying, in the long term, it's going to work out, to which he responds, in the long term, we'll all be dead. What about the short term?
In the long run, we're all dead. Short run matters too. Nobody knows what the impact of these tariffs is going to be on the economy.
Anyone who says there may be a little bit of pain before we get things right need to talk about farmers who are one crop away from bankruptcy.
Senator Kennedy of
And Rand Paul, never one to be afraid to buck the party, had this to say.
Tariffs have also led to political decimation. When McKinley most famously put tariffs on in 1890, they lost 50% of their seats in the next election. When Hot Smoothie put on their tariff in the early 1930s, we lost the House and the Senate for 60 years. So they're not only bad economically, they're bad politically.
So China has responded. The U.S. move disregards the balance of interests reached in multilateral trade negotiations over the years and the fact that it has long benefited greatly from international trade, China's Commerce Ministry said in a statement. Quote, China firmly opposes this and will take countermeasures to safeguard its own rights and interests, the ministry said, as the world's largest economies look set to spiral deeper into a trade war that stands to upend global supply chains. Trump on Wednesday announced China would be hit with a 34% tariff on top of the 20% he previously imposed earlier this year, bringing the total new levies to 54% and close to the 60% figure he had threatened while on the campaign trail. So if you have a TV, I hope it's in good working order, because the days of being able to get a $300 flat screen are over, baby. Now, this is what I was mentioning before. Auto giants surprisingly resilient as sweeping U.S. tariffs spare Canada and Mexico for now. Analysts and economists said the relatively muted response from auto stocks could be partly attributed to an exemption for Canada and Mexico, where many car makers, have production hubs from Trump's highly anticipated reciprocal tariffs announcement. In a major speech, Trump on Wednesday said his plan would set a 10% baseline tariff across the board, with even higher targeted tariff rates of 34% on China, 20% on the European Union, and 46% on Vietnam. The White House said Canada and Mexico would be exempt from the baseline 10% tariff rate, as well as from reciprocal levies for specific countries for now. So as of when I was preparing the slides about an hour ago, this was where the market was sitting. It's quite a rout. You know what? I will give you an update right now. That was picked back up a little bit, down 277. Nasdaq's down 4.62. S&P 3.49. The Russell 2000, which is small cap stocks, 5.30. So yeah, it is a bloodbath. Most stocks are held by the top 1%. On the other hand, a lot of people's pension funds, a lot of people's 401ks, a lot of people's retirement savings are in the market. And best advice for people like that is don't look at the numbers today, because you're going to get really upset. This was very predictable. With tariffs, the history, as Rand Paul points out, of trying to tariff your way to prosperity is not good. Believe me, not good. The idea that all of this manufacturing is going to come flooding back to the United States, that's what Senator Kennedy there is referring to. Like, yeah, maybe long term, but what happens now when all these people are going bankrupt, all these farms are going under? And that aside, it's certainly no guarantee that that's what would happen. China, in response to the earlier tariffs, started just shifting its supply chain to get around it. There's no saying these factories will come to the United States. They could just wind up benefiting other countries that are cheaper to do business in. So not good. Believe me, not good. Even if the long-term theory were correct, and that's not at all clear, that's not going to help people who are living in a cardboard box by the time you would get these factories built. Like you don't just prefab a factory and throw it up. To create factories that can manufacture auto parts safely that are not going to get you killed takes time, man. That takes a lot of time. That's very precise engineering. You got to get the architectural firms in. You got to get everything designed. You got to get everything approved. You got to go through testing to make sure it's manufacturing it properly. That would take years. What this will do to the economy in terms of inflation, in terms of layoffs, employment, you've got the double whammy. We are already seeing higher layoffs than we've seen since the pandemics. So you got the combination of Elon running around in the federal government, just kind of firing people willy-nilly to see what'll happen if he does it, at the same exact time that you're creating an economic environment where businesses are not going to hire. Like this could be, I think a recession is inarguable and inevitable. This could be a depression when you look at all the factors at play here.
Well, yeah, I mean, the odds of a recession just shot up to over 50%. And one thing I think people should understand is that despite whatever rhetoric comes out of these people, they're not trying to tariff our way into prosperity. They're trying to tariff their way into permanent tax cuts. This is a way to raise revenue to offset some of the losses from making permanent the Trump tax cuts that were passed in 2017. These people speak fondly of the era before the income tax, where the government was funded exclusively through tariffs. And so that's what this is for. That's why it's called Liberation Day. It's not Liberation Day for America. It's Liberation Day for them. It's Liberation Day for rich people who don't want to pay income taxes anymore, and they think they can use this as a sort of replacement. As we can see, the results already disastrous. Donald Trump already saying there's going to be pain. And what these senators, these down ballot people who we just heard from a little bit in that segment, have to say, is something you should really pay a lot of mind to, because they understand that they are not the charismatic cult leader that is Donald Trump, who the base will show up and vote for anyway. They already had a hard time in these special elections on Tuesday. They don't have the kind of pull with the base, these low propensity voters, as they now call their own base. That's not me saying it. That's them saying it, as we'll get to in a few segments down the road. There's going to be a price to pay politically for this. That's what Rand Paul said, in the short term and perhaps the long term, depending on how this goes. And so they really came in guns blazing in every respect. I mean, they're taking a blowtorch to the rest of the world, and now they're taking a blowtorch to our own economy.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be very much longer that you're going to be able to keep any but the most Kool-Aid drinking people running around yelling, "This is what I voted for!
Yeah.
America is back!" How long are you going to be able to say that, especially because the irony of this is, okay, you wanted the Democrats' old working class base, you got them.
Yep.
Who's going to be most hurt by this?
Yep.
When they say there will be pain at first, not for them.
That's
not
right.
for their kids, not for their friends, not for anyone that they know. They're talking about you. There's going to be that pain for you. How long are they going to be able to retain that fanatical base when they can't afford groceries, which is not an old-fashioned word to those of us who actually buy them?
Yes, indeed. All right, we got 2007 in the YouTube chat. Nice crowd in here today. Smash that like button, everybody. Smash that subscribe button here on YouTube. Smash that follow button over on Rumble, please and thank you very much. Trema, thanks for the €20, says, I subscribed to you both when you still only had a few hundred subscribers and been with you since then. Well, thank you so much. You two have come a long way, and your analysis is often accurate and profound. Keep it up. Well, thank you very much, Trema. Appreciate that. Pardon me. Michael Castillo says, we have not been liberated. We've been lubricated for Donald Trump. Yes, free Palestine. Thank you very much. Mark P. Thicot, thanks for the donation. You guys are my favorite show by far. Well, thank you. Keaton's RFK impersonation always cracks me up royally. Did RFK and Alex Jones have the same speech trainer? Yeah, well, they're both gravelly. Alex Jones is fast and loud, and RFK's is kind of muffled, but they're both gravelly voices. Yeah, got to have a lot of water by your side when those come up for sure. But thank you. Appreciate the kind words, my friend. Hillary Hinton, on the way to Atlantic City to see a guy about that thing, have some lobster thermidor, bribe some council members, get my Shylocks in line, and make a drop to Jimmy Dore at the Claridge. Solidarity. Oh, there you go. That's right. Is he playing tonight? Oh, yeah. I should announce this, by the way. So at the Jimmy Dore comedy show in Cohoes this Saturday, I have been invited to perform a little 5-minute set. So I will be opening up the show. I guess I'm going to be on first. I don't know. Does he have Steph come on? And I don't know what happened, but yeah. So I'll be doing 5 minutes of shtick in Cohoes on Saturday. So anybody who has tickets, if you don't have tickets, jimmydore.com. There you go. So that'll be fun. I've never actually done like stand-up comedy before. Like I've incorporated comedy into like speeches that I've done. But but I've never gone up there with the audience expectation that I'm going to make them laugh. That's a lot of pressure. You're muted or something. Your voice is not coming through.
That's the way you write your speeches, though.
Yeah, I do write them to be funny.
Your speeches are written pretty much as stand-up.
I write them as pretty much stand-up when I write them, so that'll make it a little easier. But, like if I'm giving a speech at like a Jose Vega event, the expectation is not that I'm going to go up there and make them laugh. The laughs are like a surprise. It's like, it's a bonus. This one's funny, Here, it's like you come up there with the expectation that they're going to laugh. So it's a little more pressure. But I think I got some fun stuff.
Yeah, but dude, man, look. I write speeches, you write stand-up sets. That's what you do. You went up in front of the LaRouches and did an abortion set.
Yeah, some abortion material. Yeah.
Nah, you'll kill. You'll be great.
Should be fun. Well, thank you. Should be fun. All right. So let's move on here. Okay, so we have some special election results to deal with, folks. So in Wisconsin, the liberal wins the court race despite Musk's millions. Yes, that's right. So these are the results from the Wisconsin Supreme Court special election. Susan Crawford, the liberal, 55 to Brad Schimmel's 45. So quite the rout. Donald Trump won the state by single digits, but did win the state. So this is a double-digit swing in the liberal direction, as was widely expected. This is not really a surprise. More Perfect Union has a thread on this. Elon Musk flooded the Wisconsin Supreme Court race with $25 million, and his candidate still lost by 10%. Now Trump is reportedly telling the cabinet that Musk is leaving the inner circle. Thread. Those are just rumors at this point. We have a little bit more on that later in the show. Susan Crawford won Wisconsin Supreme Court race last night, beating out Musk-backed Brad Schimmel. It was the most expensive Supreme Court race in U.S. history, led by Musk's massive spend. Losing after dumping in that much money is a bad sign for Musk and the GOP. So here you could see the trend lines all blue in all places. That is essentially the opposite of the map of the United States in November of 2024, where almost every county in America trended considerably redder than it had in 2020. Here you have the opposite dynamic, where every county trending considerably blue, leading to a double-digit victory for the liberal judge. Now, Elon Musk was not the only oligarch to pour money into this race, as More Perfect Union mentions. While Elon Musk and groups affiliated with him made up over 1/5 of the spending in the Wisconsin Supreme Court race. He wasn't the only billionaire to get involved. As you can see, he gives considerably more than all the others, but there were several other oligarchs, both red and blue, backing each candidate. So some other notable names backing Schimmel: Richard and Elizabeth Uelheim, $3.8 million; Diane Hendricks, $3.1 million; and the Koch-backed Americans for Prosperity, $3.2 million. And then backing Crawford, as you can see, another Uelheim. I guess there's trouble in the house of Uelheim. Lynn Uelheim backed the liberal for $6.2 million. She had more conviction. She or he. I don't know what Lind is. It could be a man or a woman, I would think. J.B. Pritzker, the real billionaire, $1.5 million. And, of course, George Soros kicking in $2 million. So this speaks to a problem that, even many in right-wing media, both more establishment aligned right-wing media figures like Scott Jennings, and even some more indie figures like Charlie Kirk, as we'll see, are starting to admit that now they have a certain problem that comes with the base of the party having switched from white-collar PMC country club types to blue-collar workers. And so here's Scott Jennings explaining a bit of that.
Wisconsin was referendum on Musk?
Well, I could look at it from another direction. I think the Schimmel campaign was really struggling, both financially and just in terms of traction before Musk got involved. He may have actually, given whatever boost he had late. But it didn't solve for the issue that the Republicans have, which are these low propensity voters, and trying to get them to turn out for things that are not Donald Trump. You heard Elon Musk, I think correctly, try to tie a vote in the Supreme Court race to much larger, macro political issues, but it wasn't enough. And so that is an equation the Republicans have to solve for. I don't think it's going to be an issue in 28, but look, you got a midterm between now and then. It will be an issue in these midterms, and that's something the party strategists are going to have to deal with.
Yeah.
I mean, I actually think he's right in that, in the sense that I don't think the Democrats are ready at this point to unite behind one powerful leader who can carry them to victory in a national campaign. So 2028 is not the biggest problem for Republicans. It is these upcoming midterms, because what we're seeing over and over again is that they have a hard time turning out the base when Donald Trump is not on the ticket. They had a hard time doing that in 2018. Yep. They couldn't do that really in 2022. That's why they underperformed in a major way. And here, of course, is Charlie Kirk saying essentially the same thing. We did a lot in Wisconsin, but we fell short. We must realize and appreciate that we are the low prop party now, the low propensity voter party now. The party has been remade. Special elections and off-cycle elections will continue to be a problem without a change of strategy. We are the party of welders, waiters, and plumbers. We are the party of people who work with their hands, who shower before and after work. Politics is an afterthought for many of our supporters. They have common sense and American values, but they are voters who must be chased. Yeah, that's part of the problem. The other big part of the problem is that you guys reeled the working class into your party with culture war signaling. But as you have already proven, you mean them great economic harm. You're not adopting any policies that are pro-worker. Where's the no tax on tips thing? He mentions waiters in here. That was a policy that Donald Trump proposed. Any follow through on that? No. So far, every action that this administration has taken has been to shred the social safety net and leave workers in a much more disempowered and more precarious position, if not devastated position outright, than they were just a few months ago, which was not an easy feat because the Biden economy was quite bad, which is part of why, a large reason why, these workers flooded to Trump in the first place, or the second place, if you count 2016 as the first sign of this realignment. But the Republican Party was happy to, make these cultural appeals to the working people of this country, but they have not made any significant economic proposals that would empower them. And so absent the dear leader on the ballot, which I'm sorry, you guys don't want to be called a cult. One way you would disprove being called one way you could, rebuke that charge that this is just a giant cult of personality would be to actually turn out in off-year elections when Trump is not on the ballot, right? It seems like you're only interested in showing up for Trump. So when Daddy Trump is not on the ballot, there's nothing really else for them to vote for because the policy is not there. Now, as for Elon, he's now trying to downplay this result. Elon knew that it was a long shot, says Mays, to win the Wisconsin Supreme Court race. He knew his involvement in the race would bring more violence against his companies, but he fully committed his money and time anyway. Thanks, Elon. We have amazing warriors on our side. Keep fighting. And then Elon responds, I expected to lose, but there is value to losing a piece for a positional gain. Now, what positional gain? I'm not
he's
sure.
a poet warrior in the classic sense.
Yeah, exactly. So if he expected to lose, then this was a whole lot of money he was willing to throw down the drain. Musk hands out $1 million checks after efforts to block the giveaways in court are rejected. A lawsuit aimed to stop Elon Musk and America PAC giving millions away on Sunday. So if you signed a petition for Schimmel, you got $100, no questions asked, and I guess that entered you in a certain sweepstakes to win $1 million, which he handed out to a few lucky Wisconsinites. But here he is laying out the stakes in pretty dire terms. Elon Musk proclaims the entire destiny of humanity rests on Wisconsin Supreme Court election.
They think it's just, some kind of judicial thing that's not that important. But it actually, what they're doing, what's happening on Tuesday is a vote for which party controls the U.S. House of Representatives. That is why it is so significant. And whichever party controls the House, it to a significant degree controls the country, which then steers the course of Western civilization. So it's I feel like this is one of those things that may not seem that it's going to affect the entire destiny of humanity, but I think it will.
Okay, so that seems like you're making the stakes pretty high. Yeah, it doesn't sound like you expected to lose there. That sounds like you were really going all in because, of course, you did, and he was decidedly rebuked. A 10-point defeat despite that $25 million buy-in, which is part of why, and I would say argue probably mostly why, there's a lot of chirping now about whether or not he should remain a part of the team because his favorability numbers were bad going into this. And now you see $25 million into this race. Not only did the Democrats win despite that, you might argue they won in part because of that, because Elon Musk became so involved in this race that it energized the opposition. But however you slice that, it was a massive blue shift in Wisconsin, which is a hugely important state, both in terms of Senate balance and obviously the Electoral College, and a huge L for Elon Musk. And so the first real test that Elon had post-November was obviously a massive failure. There's no way to spin that. They are trying. They're trying to blame low-propensity voters. That's true, but that's a separate problem. And that's, I would argue, an equally dire problem for the Republican Party. They're fucking over the working class. You can't bring in working people to your party and then stick it in their ass with every policy, up to and including Liberation Day tariffs, which are only going to make inflation and the job market much worse.
Yeah, I think that the results of the election caused some people to overcorrect on the internet is not real life thing. They said, well, apparently it is real life. Well, look who Trump was running against. Trump has always been lucky in his enemies.
Right.
He ran against Hillary Clinton, the most hated politician in the history of polling to ever run for the Democratic Party. And then he ran against Kamala Harris, who couldn't even make it to Iowa in the primaries of 2020, who was just shoehorned in there at the last minute by the melting brain of the president, had about 2 months to campaign, and being a terrible politician under almost impossible circumstances, even for a good one, was beaten pretty easily. None of this speaks to there was overwhelming support for Donald Trump and what he represents. So going back to the internet is not real life, Elon is a weird, creepy, off-putting, absentee father who likes to go out and say things very offhandedly like Social Security is a Ponzi scheme. Now, whether you agree with that assessment or don't agree with it, and as we've covered in the past, you could say that about all government spending, right? Yeah, like you take money from the taxes
Right.
and you put it into these things. You make commitments on things that you don't necessarily have money for at the time that you make the commitment because you're going to collect it in tax revenue or through other means. So it's an absurd thing to say. But when you have particularly the base that they wanted, the base that they got, very dependent on Social Security in retirement. It's not their class that needs Social Security. It's largely the people who are now their base and their voters who are going to be impacted by these policies. We think none of these MAGA people have any friends who work in the federal government who are being fired all of a sudden. These people are doing this with such little care and consideration. They've just created an uproar by firing everyone involved in the 9/11 medical support services for the first responders who were sick.
Right.
Elon inherited a lot of money, and he has manipulated the system very well to get himself very rich. If you look at the history of his pronouncements about what Tesla is going to do and what it actually ends up doing, if you look at the results of the Cybertruck, which they just had to recall in its totality because they literally have the panels flying off because they weren't glued on enough, and that's just the latest thing with it. The idea that this guy is, some super genius. He has no engineering degree, by the way. He's not actually an engineer. He's an entrepreneur who has done very well off government contracts and rebates. You just set this guy loose in the federal government, and he said himself, well, we have to shut off money and see what happens. So that's, they're shutting off money to first responders. They just fired the entire staff involved in providing support for low-income people for their electric bills. Now, who disproportionately benefits from these programs? Poor people, working class people, a lot of the Trump base. But the tariffs, that's just the final nail in the coffin. By the time you get to the midterms, he's not going to have much of a base left. And really, if you step back and look at it, there was never much of a base to begin with. You're talking about a third of the country voted for this guy.
Right.
More people did not vote than voted for Donald Trump.
Oh, quite a bit more. Quite a bit more. Indeed. Chris H. Says, I'm so glad that Trump imposed a 29% tariff on Norfolk Island, which is an Australian territory with just over 2,000 people. They have ripped off the U.S. for decades. MAGA. Thank you. Wasem Gurani, don't forget he also charged tariffs on South Sudan as well as their amazing economy. Notice how Iran has no trade with USA and no tariffs. Yes, thank you, Wasim. Appreciate that. Miriam Cotton says, whatever about tariffs, U.S. can keep additive hormone polluted meat and other food. Yeah, there you go. We're going to do that later.
Yeah,
hopefully
we're gonna cover
RFK
that.
will clean it up to meet EU import safety standards. Yes, we are going to do that in a bit. Laugh 66, thank you very much. I bought a clothing item for the first time in 7 or 8 years recently. Supposed to be a Scandinavian cardigan, but it was a robe and clown outfit colors. Ah, there you go. Thank you, Laugh. Appreciate that. Miserable Lib says SNL could just run the clip of this baboon explaining how great his tariffs are, and it'd be funnier than anything they could come up with. There you go. Indeed. Thank you, Miserable Lib. All right, part 2 of our special election recap. This is much darker news here. Republicans win Florida special elections in Trump strongholds by narrower margins than 2024. So even in this example, Democrats ate into Republican margins quite a bit. But wait till you get a load of the guy they elected in Florida. Makes Richie Torres look like Norm Finkelstein, this guy. I mean, unbelievable. But we'll get to that in a minute. Hold on one second. Republicans, Jimmy Petronis.
You gotta keep a water pistol.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, water gun. Yeah, super.
When they
soaker.
act up, you soak them.
Yeah. Republicans Jimmy Patronis and Randy Fine won special elections Tuesday in 2 Florida congressional districts, bolstered by President Donald Trump's endorsement to fill vacant seats in reliably Republican strongholds. Patronis, the state's chief financial officer, fended off a challenge from Democrat Gay Valamont, even though she far outraised and outspent him. He will fill the Northwest Florida 1st District seat vacated by former Representative Matt Gaetz, who was chosen to be Trump's attorney general but withdrew from consideration amid allegations of sexual misconduct, which he has denied. So, yeah, both of these districts were left open because Trump, potential cabinet appointees anyway, were dragged into Washington, leaving those seats empty. In North Florida's 6th District, Fine won against Democratic challenger Josh Weil for a seat vacated by Mike Waltz when he was tapped to become Trump's national security advisor. The win bolsters Republicans' margin to 220 to 213 in the House of Representatives. Special elections are often low turnout events that can lead to surprising results. While GOP wins were widely expected in both districts, 2 of the most heavily Republican in the country, it's notable that Democrats narrowed the margins considerably from November. So here's Florida's 1st District. As you can see, just about every county in that district moved by double digits in the blue direction. So Escambia County went 14 points for Trump in 2024, and now it went 3.2 points for Weil. So the Democrats actually flipped that county. And then everywhere else, as you could see, pretty significant shifts to the Democrat side, even though obviously it was nowhere near enough to pull a victory out. Now, here in Florida's 6th District, this is where Randy Fine won. This was considered to be likely the more competitive of the 2. Trump won this district by 30 points, which meant this was almost an insurmountable deficit. But as you could see here, the Democrats actually closed the gap from 30 to about 14 points. It was about a 16-point pickup, which tracks identically to the Pennsylvania state Senate race, where they were down by 15 and they ended up winning by 1. Went from Republican plus 15 to Democrat plus 1. So in both of those regions, you're seeing about a 15, 16-point swing to the Democrat side. As you could see here, massive shifts to the left in every single county. None enough to flip anything. Like I said, these are deep, deep, deep red districts, northern Florida. So here he is. Here's Randy Fine, your new congressman from Florida's 6th District, sitting there proudly in front of the American flag. Oh, wait, no, that's not the American flag. Sorry, that's the Israeli flag. Yes, Randy Fine sitting there with the Israeli flag displayed prominently in his office. Tom Woods, who's not a lib.
Loyalty.
Yeah. Tom Woods is a libertarian type. He wrote the book. I forget the name of it. It was just in my head. He wrote the COVID book, Diary of a Psychosis. But he points out here, your new congressman, Randy Fine. Folks, this is not normal. I know that heterodox Christians with their novel theology say this is good. They are hopeless. For the rest of you, it's not anti-Semitic to wonder about foreign flags in congressional offices and what it means. That's right. So here's another look at Randy Fine. As you can see, no one's happier about his victory than Chris Christie. Chris Christie's like, finally, they're going to leave me alone for a few years.
The sugar companies must have given him some of that money to have this person up there.
Yeah, exactly. So here you could see why Randy Fine flies that Israel flag in his office. AIPAC's Randy Fine calls for 5-year prison sentences for distributing anti-Israel flyers, calling it a hate crime.
Accountable without violating their free speech.
Sure. And again, I would remind you that there's no First Amendment right to conduct. There's a First Amendment right to speech, and the things that we're targeting in the bill are not speech. Again, if someone wants to stand across the street from my house and wave a sign on the sidewalk, they have every right to do that, and this bill won't have anything to do with that. But when it veers into conduct, and so the way we're going to approach this is through a hate crime kicker. So if you graffiti a building, it is a crime now. But if your motivation is hate, it will be a third-degree felony. You will spend 5 years in prison. If you want to litter, it's a crime right now. But if you litter and if your motivation is a hate crime, it will be a third-degree felony. You will spend 5 years in jail. It is a crime right now to hang banners from an interstate. For obvious reasons, we don't want to distract drivers. But if you do that and you have a hate crime, a hate motivation, it will be a third-degree felony. You will spend 5 years in jail.
How optimistic are you of moving this bill along?
I guarantee the bill will pass. And I never do that.
Wow. Now, he guaranteed that bill would pass for good reason. Apparently, this was the bill he's talking about. Florida Senate, which he was a member of up until he is sworn into Congress now. Florida Senate unanimously passes bill to define anti-Semitism. So basically, this is like the Florida state version of the Anti-Semitism Awareness Act. Now, Randy Fine obviously does not need protection under the Anti-Semitism Awareness Act because he is already protected under the Endangered Species Act, as we know. But he's looking out for everyone else. So let's take a look at some of the posts of Randy Fine throughout the year. So what's blacked out in that photo is what you can imagine. Which is a very bloody picture of a dead Palestinian child. Not from this most recent genocide, but from 2021, which was the last sort of escalation in violence. Maram says, supporting killing innocent people and babies and smearing voices that fight against genocide for some AIPAC money says a lot about your character. You should be ashamed of yourself. How do you sleep at night? And Senator Randy Fine says, quite well, actually. Thanks for the pick. Yep, that's your new congressman, Randy Fine. Comes with, obviously, the proud endorsement of President Donald Trump. So here's our friend Dave DeCamp wrote an article about him. Florida's new congressman once celebrated the Israeli military killing not just a Palestinian child, that's par for the course from people like this, but an American citizen. That's right, as recently as last year. A Florida state senator who once celebrated the Israeli military's killing of an American citizen and has a history of calling for mass violence against Palestinians has won a special election for Mike Waltz's seat in the House for Florida's 6th congressional district. Randy Fine, who's received a strong endorsement from President Trump, is extremely pro-Israel and has a history of calling on social media for mass violence against Palestinians. Fine's win on Tuesday night has put a spotlight on some of his more egregious posts, including his giddy response to the killing of Aysenur Ezgi Aigi, who we covered last year, Shama Sawant's friend, a 26-year-old Turkish-American citizen who was gunned down by the IDF while peacefully protesting Israeli settlements in the West Bank last year. Aigi was born in Turkey and moved to the U.S. with her family before her first birthday. She was shot in the head by an IDF soldier, and investigations have found that she was standing peacefully about 200 meters from Israeli troops during the incident. Throw rocks, get shot, one less Muslim terrorist, fire away, Fine wrote on X after Aigi's killing. In response to a video of President Trump discussing Israeli hostages in Gaza, Fine said, so much for innocent Palestinian civilians, hashtag bombs away. Fine has also equated all Palestinians with Hamas. Palestinian equals Hamas. Bombs away, he said in another post. He once said that Palestinian, yes, is just another word for demon. So here are some screenshots of some of the tweets that Dave outlined in that article. So much for innocent Palestinian civilians. Palestinian is just another word for demon. Fine has called for Israel to cut off aid into Gaza and said it was about time when Israel imposed a total blockade on all goods entering the Strip last month. Stop the trucks. Let them eat rockets. There are plenty of those. Bombs away, he said in a post in December of 2023. And there it is, the post in question there. Now, Candace Owens even spoke out against Randy Fine, which good for her. She says, this is who President Trump just endorsed for office. This is absolutely appalling and revealing as to who is in charge of the White House. Any person who can look at a picture of a murdered baby and mock it is a monster. Do not vote for this genocidal pig, she said. Unfortunately, not enough people heeded her advice. And shame on all of you pro-lifers and Christians who won't comment on this because you're being funded by people who believe Palestinian children are not humans. Yes. Amen. So this is just a psychotically evil, barbaric son of a bitch that just won this election by double digits. And, you know, what it makes me think of is what does Josh Weil think about Israel-Palestine? Because Florida, as you could see, that anti-Semitism bill passed unanimously, which means they had a lot of Democrat support. Now, from what I hear, Josh Weil is, quote, pro-Palestine in the sense that he's anti-genocide and wants arms shipments to stop to Israel. There was reporting, which the Fine campaign made a big deal about. He was being interviewed and somebody referred to Fine as a pro-Israel fanatic, and Weil nodded along and didn't rebuke that. But if that's the evidence that Fine is pointing to suggest that his Democratic opponents is, you know, pro-Palestine to the point of being anti-Semitic, which is the charge they also made, I didn't see Josh Weil make an issue of this at all. He ran on things like Social Security. He ran mostly on other issues. We haven't heard any real statements from the Democratic side about what a fanatical Zionist with really just a murder in his heart this guy Randy Fine is, which just it's such an indictment of this country that in a campaign like this, when you have, if this piece of garbage had made tweets and statements like that about anyone else, you could bet your life the Democrats would have run ads wall to wall as to what a racist, genocidal monster he was. But when he talks that way about Palestine, the Democrats are very, very careful about what they say. Very careful about what they say. And so not only shame on Randy Fine, but shame on his Democratic opponent for not making this known throughout the campaign. Because they're all a bunch of fucking cats. Both parties are completely owned by Israel. And in a state like Florida, Weil probably knows that even if he wasn't owned by Israel, he couldn't win if he pointed that shit out.
Yeah, Zionists have an incredible blindness about how dangerous what they're cultivating is and how dangerous it is to get in bed with the people they're getting in bed with is. It is a danger to all Jewish people because when the real backlash comes, and I believe it will come, people are not going to make those fine distinctions about who was a Zionist and who wasn't a Zionist. You have within these movements that you believe are protecting you or on your side, go look at the comments on Ben Shapiro's tweets. Go look at the comments in Matt Walsh's tweets. And I'm not saying Matt Walsh is entirely Zionist, more complicated with him, as we'll see later, but look at the tweets. There are a lot of bone deep anti-Semites who use guys like this as evidence of everything that the Nazis claimed, that anti-Semitic groups, Ku Klux Klan, have been claiming for over a century, that there's a secret cabal of Jews that controls government, that controls media, that controls the world. What do you think? It escapes people that if, say, a Chinese politician got up there and said, yes, the Uyghurs are not human beings. We need to kill more children. You think they don't notice that if that were the formulation, there'd be an uproar from all sides of the political aisle?
Right.
That if a Japanese politician got up and said, well, Koreans, bombs away, they're disgusting. You think people don't notice that? You think that doesn't play to these anti-Semitic tropes? Of course it does. People like Fine are extremely dangerous. Getting in bed with people who support people like that is extremely dangerous. This is why a lot of Jewish politicians in Israel actually seem to be a little more aware of how they're playing with fire by getting in bed with these far-right pro-Israel groups. They were very angry, some of them, that Netanyahu was going to appear at this conference with these very far-right politicians because they understand, you know, they support Israel insofar as it's part of a Western imperial project.
Right, exactly.
They and many of their supporters are not very fond of Jews. in general on principle. And it is not going to take anything. I'm telling you, if you're a Zionist, you're probably not watching our show if you are. But if you happen to, go look at the comments on Ben Shapiro's shit. Look how many of because a lot of these MAGA people, there's overlap with their audience. And a lot of them do not like the Zionism, and they do not make this fine distinction between Jews and Zionists. To them, it is a Jewish plot and conspiracy to control the world in which all Jews are culpable. That is what you're feeding. That is what you're feeding when you encourage and elevate people like this.
Yeah. And, in Florida 6th District wins by double digits. And it's hardly an issue in the campaign. From everything we can see. I didn't see ads running. I didn't see, people didn't tweet out ads about what a crazy fanatical, Zionist Randy Fine was and how he celebrated the death of an American who was shot in the head by the IDF. Why wasn't that an issue? Why didn't the Democrat make that an issue in the campaign? Well, however you slice it, it's terrible because either they felt they couldn't for, inside the Beltway reasons, or they thought it wouldn't play with the people in Florida 6th District. They thought the people in Florida 6th District simply won't care. And that's something we have to reckon with, too. A lot of people in this country simply don't care. And that's something I think we got to be honest with as well. Nathan Lucho, thank you for the $5. Why has there been hardly any tariffs on Canadian oil? That's basically the only industry between us where there is a trade deficit.
This is just breaking. Canadian Prime Minister hits U.S. auto sector with retaliatory tariffs. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney said the country will impose a 25% retaliatory tariff on all vehicles manufactured in the U.S. that don't comply with USMCA standards or have non-Canadian content of USMCA compliant vehicles from the U.S. And so it begins.
And so it begins. That's right. Let's see here. Wasim Garani, during the early years of Nazi Germany, Western governments were supportive of Germany and did not care what they did inside Germany or invading USSR until they turned on the European superpowers. Nathan Lucho, we got that one already. Sorry. Wasim Garani, our PM at the time, who was on a $50 bill, invited A.H. Hitler to Canadian Parliament saying he is a great guy. Then, due to a lack of social media, they rewritten history to say they never supported Nazi Germany. Mrs. Thanks for the $5. Yesterday's Onion American Voices has the older gentleman saying, "I can't wait to see the look on the woke lib faces when my kids go hungry." Yeah, there you go. Yes. Yes. That's funny. Eric Maines, thanks for the $5. I was depressed over Dow drop, but I heard Will Smith has a new album out and it slapped me out of my blues. Keep those market quotes out of your mouth, Russ. There you go. Thank you, Eric Maines. Appreciate that. Okay, let's see here. Ken Minji says, Keaton, you would be great at comedy. Thank you. You are necessary to counter the racial comedy duo of Ben Shapiro and Yohei Sponder. Your mom is so fat, you must be Palestinian. Thank you, Ken Minji. Appreciate that. Let's see. Since we are cracking down on speech and international trespassing, is it time we do it domestically? Bad lawn signs. Afuera! Step in my yard. Afuera! Vacationing and talking bad about my state. Afuera! Joking. Gotcha. Understood. Thank you, Luigi. Appreciate that very much. All right, let's move on. Elon, maybe on the outs, maybe not. The rumors are heating up. A lot of people are saying.
A lot of very smart people are saying. All right, so Elon is having a really hard week. According to Ashley Sinclair, he has not been able to perform because of this meme.
Yeah.
It's making him very upset, exposing him as having the tiny tadger that he reportedly does.
That's a good meme.
Not just that. Tesla reports 13% drop in first quarter vehicle deliveries from a year ago. Apparently, Ashley told him, don't worry, this happens to all men sometimes.
Right.
But that didn't comfort him at all. Tesla reported 336,681 vehicle deliveries in the first quarter of 2025, a 13% decline from a year ago, 2 days after the electric vehicle company's stock wrapped up its worst quarter since 2022. Across 15 European countries, Tesla's market share declined to 9.3% in the first quarter from 17.9% in the same period a year earlier, according to data tracked by EUEVs.com. In Germany, Tesla's market share in battery electric vehicles plummeted to 4% from about 16% over that stretch. That's about a 75% drop. Sales of Tesla's electric vehicles made in China came in at 78,828 in March, slumping 11.5% year on year, according to data from the China Passenger Car Association released Wednesday. The company is facing rising competition in the region from EV makers such as BYD. Early in the quarter, Tesla claimed it sold 8,653 EVs during a single January weekend in Canada, the Toronto Star reported, qualifying it for tens of millions in EV subsidy payments that were part of a program that was ending. Canada's transportation minister later froze the payments and is investigating the validity of the sales. Tesla did not immediately respond to an email from CNBC asking whether the Canada numbers were included in the quarter one deliveries report. Tesla shares sank 36% in the first quarter, their steepest fall since the fourth quarter of 2022, and third biggest decline in the company's 15 years on the public market. The drop wiped out $460 billion in market cap. Now, before we continue, I just want to point something out. Elon has been running around quite a lot saying, well, why would I get involved in government? It's actually cost me a lot of money. It would have probably just been better for me to lobby. And this is, so he's doing this for the country. Okay, well, lobbying is not going to allow you to gut all the agencies that are investigating you and possibly going to bring you into court for prosecution. That would not allow that. I believe it's 17 different agencies were investigating Elon Musk, all of which he has gutted and in many cases fired the people in charge of investigating him. That is something he could not have bought from the outside. So, and also he's saying, well, why would I care about these amounts of money? You're talking about a company that is so dishonest that they pretended to sell cars in order to cash in on a Canadian rebate program. Just $43 million. $43 million. It was worth it to them to run this whole scam, and it's clearly a scam that they ran. There's absolutely no way they sold over 8,000 cars that weekend all of a sudden. All of a sudden, the weekend that the program's ending, that absolutely fraudulent claims of having sold these cars. So a company with a CEO that is that dishonest, what, you think that they consider these relatively small amounts of money beyond it being worthwhile for them to think about? That's how greedy these people are. That is how greedy and, yes, evil and psychopathic these people are, that they would run a scam like that for $43 million. So obvious, so transparent. That's another thing. What, you really thought nobody was going to notice that you're selling hundreds of cars an hour the weekend the rebate is running out? And that, puts the lie to the idea that these people are competent. Very often the thing with sociopaths is they're very smart in an IQ sense, but because they don't have the normal panoply of human emotion and sensitivity, they make stupid mistakes, like look up how to get away with killing your wife on a computer.
Right.
It's very typical that you have these brilliant sociopaths who will make very obvious mistakes like that because they're just not normal. They're not wired like a normal person. I think you could definitely make that argument about Elon. Oops, sorry about that. Oh, yeah, okay. All right, so this is again Dan Ives from Wedbush Securities, who I wanted to highlight him because he is a very big Tesla bull. So this is not coming from somebody who's been talking down the stock. We knew Q1 Tesla deliveries would be soft, but these numbers were bad. We are not going to look at these numbers with rose-colored glasses. They were a disaster on every metric. Refresh issues, meaning they haven't really updated their product line in a while in a meaningful way. But brand crisis key. The time has come for Musk, fork in the road moment for Tesla. So naturally, there's been a lot of speculation on whether it's worth it for Elon to continue to draw the kinds of hatred to his brand that he clearly is. So he spoke a little bit about this with Brett Baer, whether it was a mission accomplished moment for him.
You're a special government employee, and you're supposed to be 130 days. Are you going to continue past that, or do you think that's what you're going to do? Or?
Well, I think we will have accomplished most of the work required to reduce the deficit by $1 trillion within that time frame.
So in that time frame, 130 days.
All right. So what they're referring to is he's been designated a special government employee, and you can maintain that designation for 130 days before you have to be officially hired. So Trump was asked about this.
Elon Musk's special government tenure is coming to an end, 130 days, I think another month. Do you want him to stay longer, or is it time for him to go back to running his companies in Europe?
Well, I think he's amazing, but I also think he's got a big company to run, and so at some point he's going to be going back. He wants to.
Did you want to keep him around?
But I'd keep him as long as I could keep him. He's a very talented guy. I love very smart people. He's very smart, and he's done a good job. DOGE is, we found numbers that nobody can even believe, like 400 billion, 500 billion. It could be close to $1 trillion by the time they end on different things. And he's led the charge, and you've seen a lot of his people. And these are people that joined up. I would say they're high IQ people. I like high IQ people. And they've done a great job. No, at some point, Elon's going to want to go back to his company. I will say he's got, despite the way he's been treated, so he's an American patriot.
Okay. So the rumors are flying, and now Politico has broken the story that Trump tells his inner circle that Musk will leave soon. So Rachel Bade wrote the article. These are the bullet points that she tweeted out. President Trump has told his inner circle and members of his cabinet that Elon Musk will be stepping back in the coming weeks from his current role. Trump remains pleased with Musk and DOGE, but both men have decided in recent days that it will soon be time for Musk to return to his businesses and take on a supporting role. Musk's looming exit comes as some Trump administration insiders and many outside allies have become frustrated with his unpredictability and view the billionaire as a political liability, a dynamic that was thrown into stark relief Tuesday when a conservative judge Musk vocally supported lost his bid for a Wisconsin Supreme Court seat by 10 points. Of note, senior administration official said Musk is likely to retain his informal role as an advisor and continue to be an occasional face around the White House grounds. Another caution that anyone who thinks Musk is going to disappear entirely from Trump's orbit is fooling themselves. But the news represents a shift in the Trump-Musk relationship from a month ago when White House officials and allies were predicting Musk was here to stay and that Trump would find a way to blow past the 130-day time limit. POTUS has indicated that the transition is likely to correspond to the end of Musk's time as a special government employee, a special status that temporarily exempts him from some ethics and conflict of interest rules. That 130-day period is expected to expire in late May or early June. Why now? Musk's defenders believe that the time is right for a transition given their view that there's only so much more he can cut from government agencies without shaving too close to the bone. Yeah, he hasn't done that yet. Phew, thank God.
Yeah.
But many others say he's an unpredictable, unmanageable force who has had issues communicating his plans with cabinet secretaries and through the White House chain of command led by Chief of Staff Susie Wiles, frequently sending them into a frenzy with unexpected and off-message comments on X, his social media platform, including sharing unvetted and uncoordinated plans to gut federal agencies. Now, if you read the article, she gets into more detail. Apparently, when Musk shut down Johnson's bill by threatening to primary people who voted for it, he did not get clearance from the big guy before he did that, and it kind of pissed them off. They also were not thrilled with his Social Security as a Ponzi scheme, given that Trump is trying to put out the message that he's not going to touch Social Security. So those were examples they gave where he went off message. Although, according to the article, Trump does like him and he admires him, and that affection is legitimate. But politically, he's starting, according to the reporting, politically he's starting to see him as a liability.
Well, sorry, I thought you were done. Go ahead.
Okay, so Washington's favorite sugar baby since Dolly Madison, Carolyn Levitt, says this scoop is garbage. Elon Musk and President Trump have both publicly stated, she's picking up the boss's tendency to put quotation marks on weird words, publicly stated that Elon will depart from public service as a special government employee when his incredible work at DOGE is complete, which is not exactly a denial if you parse that language carefully. So, yeah, it sounds like they're going to use the deadline as an excuse to say we meant to do that. This isn't any pressure. This isn't because people despise Elon. It isn't because he's running around like a wrecking ball tanking the president's approval numbers. One point that was made in the article is in some ways he's kind of functioning the way a vice president traditionally does, and that's a political advantage in some respects. He's drawing all the hatred. He's drawing all the fire away from Trump. So they do like that element of it. But yeah, man, I mean, Tesla is the basis of all of this political leverage that he's exerted to get into this position, and Tesla is collapsing. Now, I personally don't think that's reversible. I think the only thing that he can do really to save his businesses, and it's entirely possible this will happen, is he becomes an even bigger government contractor than he already is. And that essentially becomes his business, and he's not reliant on consumers buying Teslas. I don't think the Tesla business will ever recover from the damage that's been done to it, in addition to increasing competition and, by all accounts, the Chinese cars actually being better.
Yeah, I mean, I think this has everything to do with him as a political liability, and I think the Wisconsin race is a major indicator of that. He is drawing a lot of the ire because he is rightfully perceived to be just as powerful, if not more powerful, than Donald Trump himself. I mean, when you stand in the Oval Office and tower over the president and take questions from the press, you are attaching yourself to the president in a way that I would argue is even more clear in the public mind than, say, the vice president who gets appointed the czar of whatever. Like Biden sent Kamala to Guatemala to tell the immigrants not to come. Like, that's a job you give the vice president.
Right. They sent Vance to Greenland to be humiliated.
Exactly. Like, that's what you do to the vice president. This guy's actually giving press conferences from the Oval Office. He's speaking at the cabinet meetings. This guy is joined at the hip with Trump, and he's not popular. And yeah, he is a drag on the party, especially when the impacts of his insane economic theories, quote unquote, because I don't even really take them in good faith. I think he likes guys like Javier Milei because guys like Javier Milei clear the field for him to just loot the public. Right. So I wouldn't even call it a theory in that sense. But the point is, as people start feeling the pain, they are going to associate that with Elon Musk, which damages Donald Trump because they are essentially one and the same at this point, and that is the price to pay for keeping him as close as Trump has kept him. And he's kept him that way because Elon is really Trump's muscle. Maybe they didn't like that he didn't check with the boss before he threatened the party over Mike Johnson's spending bill. But whether they're happy with that or not, the fact of the matter is it was Elon Musk tweeting out that I'll primary anyone who votes the wrong way on this. That is what whipped that party into shape. And so Trump has taken advantage of that multiple times, starting in July when Elon endorsed him and poured all that money into the campaign. And now that, people are starting to see what all of this means for them as ordinary people, once the schadenfreude of rounding up gay hairdressers and sending them to torture prisons wears off, they're going to be left looking not good, believe me, not good. And so I think they would be smart to start planning his exit as far ahead of the midterms as they possibly can.
Yeah. I think it's also a reflection of Trump's laziness. Trump, in a general sense, wants to destroy the government, but he doesn't really have the wherewithal to get into the weeds of doing it. So he was able to just set this psychopath loose on federal programs and just, let Elon do it.
Right.
Let him do it. And then later on, the beauty of it is when they really face the political consequences, Trump has no loyalty to anybody. He can throw Elon under the bus.
Right.
Yeah, I thought I didn't realize some of what he was doing. Honestly, he didn't tell me everything.
Right. Yeah. And the more time they give themselves to sort of distance themselves from him in front of the midterms, I think the better they feel they will fare, because he's obviously a political liability at this point. I don't think this chatter would be as loud if the conservative won that court race. I think that was a major test.
Yeah.
Elon made it a major test, and he failed it. It is hubris on Elon's part too, because when you inject yourself into a race in that way, you set yourself up for a victory. You also set yourself up for a defeat. And in an off-year special election, a state like Wisconsin, which is not a deep red state, was likely to vote for the liberal, especially on social issues. These swing states tend to be very pro-choice and very liberal. So it was really not smart to inject himself into the race in that way. And this is part of the price he pays for it.
Pride goeth before a fall.
That's right. Pride goeth before a fall. Wasim Garani, thanks for the 50 Canadian dollars. Let's have a cowbell for Wasim. Thank you very much, Wasim. Appreciate that. Which takes me to Gaza. When it is said and done, when these Geno supporters are saying we were against Zioreal and trying to rewrite history to be moral, social media in today's age will not look good for them 30 years from now. Thank you, Wasim. Appreciate that. Michael Castillo says, I want to go to Cohoes now. Keaton, maybe you could start making appearances on Jimmy's Rumble Live. I would pay whatever to see you and the crew. That would be fun. Yeah, when they do a show in Troy, I'll be there for sure. Rumble Live from Hoosick Falls, New York. Thank you, Michael. The Raging D-Head, thanks for the $20. At this point, I see everything as being stagnant. No one is gaining any traction. People may put up with higher costs longer than you think, with no one else to look at to make a difference. It is a very, very uncertain time, that's for sure.
No, man. When people are broke and they're hungry and they're struggling, they get angry.
Well, this is what
you're not going to be able to maintain political support under those conditions.
Yeah, those were the next words out of my mouth were, the Republicans are making it very easy for Democrats to just win by default. They're making it very easy.
Exactly.
Now, it's hard to win a presidential election by default, since that becomes a battle of personalities, right? And the MAGA cult is going to be behind J.D. Vance, we assume, maybe Tulsi, who knows? They will get behind somebody. Do the Democrats have a person who can really lead the country in that way? I don't know. So I would say their odds in 2028.
4 years is a long time.
It could happen, but I'm saying as of now.
Bill Clinton wasn't on anybody's radar.
No, it absolutely could happen. But I'm saying as of now, I don't see that materializing as easily. In terms of midterms, all you have to do in the midterms is win by default if the other party tanks. And man, are the Republicans making it easy for the Democrats here. I mean, a 17-point swing. These districts that the Republicans won in Florida, these were 30-point Trump districts, and they won them by like 14. That's still that means any district where you're not leading double digits is in grave danger. I mean, that puts a whole lot of places in play.
And we're not even 3 months in.
Exactly. Liberation Day was just yesterday, right? I mean, we're not even 3 months in.
Well, and this is why, like, I understand there's a tendency with a new administration to want to succumb to the feeling that there's going to be a great change and there's a honeymoon. It was very obvious what these guys were about from the beginning. You know, just because they're saying we found $80 billion going to tampons in the bathroom, it doesn't mean it's true. And a lot of people who should have known better gassed that shit up and just jumped on it and repeated it uncritically. And as we said from the beginning, it's not going to age well, man. It's not going to age well. Going and covering J.D. Vance, going to Europe and complaining about them cracking down on anti-abortion activists without ever mentioning the mass arrests of journalists and protesters all across Europe. I mean, it's not like you had to really, go down a cave system with a flashlight and a pick to figure out what these guys' agenda was. And a lot of people just focused on the one and not the other. It's a human tendency, but I think if you have a platform and an audience, you have a responsibility to try not to get caught up in those waves of positivity or negativity.
That's right. Alex Das Lieb, years ago, Randy Fine was canvassing outside the voting location, handing me a paper. I said, "Save the paper, I know who you are." He wished me good luck. Guess he needed to hear it. There you go. Spade 2187, who didn't get teary-eyed seeing Cory Booker's 25-hour speech? Oh my God, I'm so on board. Booker Newsom 28, baby. Blue wave, baby. LMAO. Yeah.
Dude, the fucking, I mean, just when you start to forget because they're not in charge, so the focus is in a different place. Every time something like that goes on, the libs remind you how much you hate them.
Yeah, exactly. I watched 3 minutes of it. It felt like 25 hours. I'm like, why talk for 25 hours when 3 minutes feels like 25 hours? Yeah.
No, and the libs, like, they have not changed at all. They are so politically shallow. You know, they're all tweeting, yes, right. In a world of Elon's, be a Cory.
Right. Yeah.
God, they don't know the first thing about Cory Booker.
No, of course. Blake Lensing, thanks for the $5. Since we're slapping tariffs on uninhabited islands, how much is Trump charging Melania's side of the bed? Oh, good one. I like that one. Eric Suarez, see how democracy works with one president worse than the last to make you think when you vote blue, red, you are fighting back. Thank you, Eric Suarez. Appreciate that. All right, we're going to move in. You got another one. This is your two for here. So you got Bill Burr now.
All right. So Billy Burr gave it to the media. A reporter, I believe from Newsmax, was asking him some political questions, and he was not having it. Here we go.
Your reaction to Luigi Mangione? I was reading up, that perhaps you've been supportive of what he did. What is your take on that?
If you were reading up, I don't think you read up on it. Because I said what I felt about it, and I said what a lot of people said.
Some people took it that way. So could you clarify what you think?
No, I'm not going to just have some controversial moment so you can get clicks. I'm not doing that. I'm here for Conan. I'm not doing all of this. What are you going to bring up next? The Middle East? I went to summer school 3 out of 4 years in high school. I'm not qualified to talk about this.
I was just
what do you think about global warming?
You said about Elon that he was ruining Earth, I saw on The View. You're critical of him. What do you think of all the boycotts, like even the violence that's going on in Tesla?
I don't watch the news. I have no idea what's going on. I watch Instagram. I watch people wipe out on motorcycles. I watch lions and hyenas fight each other. This is the things that I do. And I don't think you should be asking a comedian. You're a journalist.
Comedians are on top of current events.
No. That's weak. That's you guys passing the buck. You guys need to have balls again, which you don't. You guys always goes, should we be thinking this? Duh. You guys present stuff like that. You guys used to have balls. You need to get your balls back. And it's not my job. I am a dancing clown.
Okay. It's always fun to see the media get attacked that way. And it's not that what he's saying about the media is not true, but it's a little disingenuous for a guy who's been going on rants about how the billionaires need to be put down like rabid dogs to say he's not political. And it's out of line to be asking him about that. I mean, he's not Carrot Top. He has been commenting on things like this quite a lot, for example.
People that are struggling out there because of these fucking billionaires. And they got us all arguing liberal and conservative. We got to stop doing that. Like, I am so tired of hearing about people going to bed worried about what's going to happen next week. There is so much fucking money in this country. And there's so much work being done, you know. And if you work a full fucking week at a job, you should be able to pay your fucking rent. You shouldn't have to go out and get another fucking job and still be struggling. It's bad for the country because then the kids don't see their parents and they're not getting the upbringing that they need. It's so fucking, these fucking billionaires, they need to be put down, you know, like fucking rabid dogs. They're like rabid with fucking greed and just going out and just dividing everybody.
I'm glad Bill is out there making those points. He's gone on quite a few platforms and shouted free Luigi, who, by the way, Luigi didn't do anything. It's a frame job. But gone on quite a few platforms, said free Luigi, went on The View, which at least they think they're a political show. They do politics very badly, but ostensibly it's a political show. So you can't really say, well, why are you asking me? I'm a dancing clown. You're going out of your way to do political commentary. That would be like George Carlin saying, why are you asking me about politics? It's not like that's not your act. It's not like that's not what you do. Somebody here commented, and I think rightly, except that he's commenting on important shit all the time. Yes. And Wu-Tang is for the children said, yeah, you saw the Newsmax mic and said, I'm not giving you the clicks. That's possible. That's possible. And again, you know, the critique of the media is correct, that they don't do their job. And obviously they're trying to get a clickbait moment. They're trying to get a viral moment there. That's clear enough. But you can't have it both ways. You cannot be relentlessly screaming free Luigi and talking about how billionaires need to be put down by like dogs. And then when a reporter asks you, well, so what do you think about Luigi? Fall back on, I'm just a moron.
Yeah, I mean, I have mixed feelings about that because I like the first part of it. The whole, well, I'm just a dancing clown. That was an old Jon Stewart cop-out. He used to use that, too. He used to fall back, well, I'm just a comedian.
My show follows puppets making crank calls.
Right. I lead into puppets making crank calls. Yeah, exactly. I mean, that was an old cop-out of his, which... There's no reason to go there. Like, if he just left it at, no, I'm not giving you the clicks. I said what I said. Look it up. And then I think it is a good point.
Sure.
Hey, you know what? Why don't you guys do your job and explain to the public why there's been the reaction to Luigi Mangione that there's been? Why are you asking comedians for comment? Why don't you look into it? You're the journalist.
That would be great. Sure.
That would be great. And so that's kind of half of what he said. But then the other half is the standard cop-out that a lot of these guys fall back on when they don't want to be bothered with certain things in certain occasions, which is, I'm just a comic, right? Like the I'm just a comic line is that's really chicken shit. That's really a chicken shit line. The first part of that, which is, hey, look, why does it fall to dancing clowns like me to explain the Luigi Mangione phenomenon in ways that the supposedly objective news media, who is supposedly providing a public service to the country by providing them information and perspective, why are they not doing that? Why is their reflex to browbeat a comedian when a comedian echoes the sentiment of the public? Why don't you do your job? That came through a little bit. But yeah, the other stuff in terms of, well, I don't follow the news. I mean, Are you trolling at that point? You clearly follow the news. You talk about the news. I mean, you do topical comedy. He talked about Israel in his latest Hulu special.
You literally did a great bit about why the human shield thing is not an excuse.
Right, exactly. So you do follow the news. I don't know if that was just trolling or whatever, or maybe he felt, I guess, what was Conan receiving the Mark Twain Award or something?
Newsmax. That might be part of it. But honestly, all the more reason, because these are the people who are trying to say, oh, he went woke when you speak out against billionaires. All the more reason that with Newsmax, you should have a better answer than that. You spoke for him much better than he spoke for him. And that's a problem if you're going to talk about subjects like this. Like, what you said, that would have been great. Yeah. Why does it fall to me? Yeah, I'm speaking about this. He didn't own it like that.
He should have just said.
He gave this very evasive kind of, I did summer school 3 times. I'm just stupid.
I'm an idiot. Right.
I'm an idiot.
The right thing to do there, if you don't want to give them the satisfaction, which I sympathize with that, just say, sorry, I'm not giving you the viral video. Look it up and ask yourself, why am I speaking about that and no one else?
And you're
that
not.
would have been perfect. Yeah. Instead, he kind of took a cop out there. So we'll give him a C- for that one. All right. Let's see here.
I'm gonna be seeing him next week.
Oh, that's right. You're seeing Glenn Ross. Well, you should ask him a political question on the.
I should. I'm gonna stand up in the middle of the show and confront him.
Confront him. Yeah, no.
I'm gonna pull a Jose in the middle.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Well, you could ask him at the stage door. All right, what do we got here? Willie Bragg.
Why'd
hey,
you get the jab, Bill? Why'd you get the jab?
Stand up and say that. Exactly. The Willie Bragg Show. Hey, Willie, how are you? Good to see you. Evangelical Christians hate that Israel provides free universal medical care. However, these same evangelical Christians who are also anti-Jewish praises Israel's post-birth abortions in Gaza. Yes, thank you, Willie. GDNPB, sorry. Yeah, Tesla is the evil company, root of all corruption, giving others a bad name, and he is the absent dad and must be the sole focus. Well, I mean, he's the head. Does MAGA not have retirements or 401ks? They are vaporizing. Yeah. Well, this is what I mean, man. When you bring workers into your party like that, and your agenda is basically fuck workers.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly.
That's gonna create. That makes it a little hard to retain them. Right. I mean, you can't eat out on Snow White forever. You know what I mean? Like you just can't.
It's gonna get old. I saw one of the increasingly desperate anti-woke pop culture channels talk about scraping the bottom of the bowl. So the thumbnail is, it just got worse. Even Joe Rogan is trashing Snow White.
Oh boy. Yeah. It just got worse. Wow. Hey, folks, we got a great crowd in here today. 2,700 strong in the YouTube chat. 25. There you go. And well over 1,000 likes, actually. All right. Thank you all very much for being here. Smash that subscribe button if you're not subscribed to the channel. Smash that follow button over on Rumble. All right. What do we got here? The Raging D-Head says, as may be damaging to Trump, the radicals committing acts of vandalism and violence against random people for simply owning a Tesla is damaging to those trying to combat Trump. They're making a lot of hay out of that. Has there been violence against people, or has there been vandalism? I haven't heard
I haven't heard any violence against people.
Yeah. FU, thanks for the $10. Expose Kufi Christians United for Israel. Thank you for that. Furrow Squeen says, I don't always litter, but when I do it with the gesture of anti-Semitism on the side. There you go. Yes. Thank you, Furrow Squeen. Appreciate that. Dedamod says, Israel says if the U.S. won't bomb Iran, it will have to. Problem for them to take out Iran's nuclear program is only capacity is using a nuclear bomb. So for Israel to prevent Iran from getting a nuclear bomb, it has to drop a nuclear bomb on Iran. Oh, Israel doesn't admit to having the bomb to avoid inspection. Thank you, Dedamod. Appreciate that, Dedamod. Pardon me. Okay, we're going to move right along here. All right, folks. So we have some news on the Mahmoud Khalil front, which is good news. Mahmoud Khalil's case to remain in New Jersey after judge denies U.S. government's bid to move it. That's right. So the government nabbed him in New York and then put him in Jersey and then very quickly sent him to Louisiana in an effort to try him in the Fifth Circuit Court, which is the most conservative court in the country. And so he's had a much, much worse chance of being allowed to remain in America, being tried in that court than he does in Jersey. But luckily, minor win so far, but a win nonetheless. He is not going to be having his case heard in Louisiana. So the case against pro-Palestinian activist Mahmoud Khalil will remain in New Jersey after a judge denied a government motion to have the case transferred to Louisiana, where the Columbia graduate student remains in federal custody. Nearly a month after Khalil's arrest, U.S. District Judge Michael Farbiarz concluded the New Jersey District Court has jurisdiction over the case because Khalil was in the state when his attorneys filed a habeas corpus motion seeking to challenge the legality of his detention, according to a 67-page decision filed Tuesday. Following a brief detainment in Manhattan, Khalil, a legal permanent U.S. resident married to a U.S. citizen, was transferred to an ICE facility in New Jersey. Several hours later, he was finally transferred to a detention center in Louisiana, where he remains today. So see how sneaky they were? They tried to do it so quickly that so they could claim, well, that's where he is now, so I guess we have to try him in Louisiana, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Attorneys for the government argued in proceedings last week that the motion needed to be filed in Louisiana because that is where Khalil is. They just move him there immediately and says, well, he's here now. I guess Louisiana has jurisdiction, so that's a Fifth Circuit case. The petitioner was in custody in New Jersey as of March 9th at 4:40 a.m., Farbiarz wrote, and under a federal statute, the petition, though filed in New York, must be treated as having been filed in New Jersey on March 9th at 4:40 a.m., Therefore, this court has jurisdiction. So his odds are better, no doubt, in New Jersey than they would be in Louisiana. But his odds would not be so great were Judge Megyn Kelly presiding over his case, because this is going everywhere. Now, this debate was a couple weeks ago, but these clips are just surfacing thanks to a semi-viral tweet here from Halal Flow. Glenn Greenwald destroys Megyn Kelly in a debate over Mahmoud Khalil after she likens a campus protest to a Hamas terror group for demanding Colombia divest from Israel. So we're going to watch the clip in the tweet, and then we're going to kind of go back in time a minute and watch what led into this moment, because I think that is equally interesting. So watch Megyn Kelly's argument just fall apart in about 75 seconds.
Nothing unreasonable about saying being the spokesperson for an on-campus terror group means you violated your terms of staying here and your green card is getting revoked.
I think you're wildly mischaracterizing the point of this protest. I remember, very well in 2002, people who were opposed to the U.S. invasion of Iraq were told, oh, they were Saddam Hussein supporters, and they would say, no, we're not Saddam Hussein supporters. We just don't think the U.S. should invade Iraq. Same thing now. If you don't support financing Ukraine, you're told, oh, you're a Putin supporter. And you say, no, I'm not a Putin supporter. I just don't want the U.S. involved in this war.
That's a straw man.
These protests were about
That's a straw man.
Megyn, because these protests were against
no one
the
who was
Israeli
out on the
war
streets,
in Gaza. They were not defending Hamas.
They were demanding that Colombia divest. They were demanding that Colombia.
Exactly, but that's not a Hamas.
That doesn't. You just made his point for him. You're saying the demand. They're protesting at these universities not because they happen to be on universities. They're protesting at these universities because. What was that? My audio keeps cutting in and out. Oh, is that because of this stupid fucking bullshit?
Your audio is in.
No, but I think some people are. I think it's because of this cable. All right.
I mean, I'm not hearing that.
Huh. Interesting. Buffered a few seconds ago. Audio is whacked. How am I sounding now, folks? 1 2 1 2 1 2.
I think sometimes the way it comes through the studio is different from the way.
Well, it is. It is sometimes different, but sounds fine. All right, sounds fine. Rumble says sounds fine. Maybe it was YouTube here. Let me just see. All right. Okay. All right. Anyway. All right. Fine. Anyway, what was I saying? Oh yeah. I mean, she just
divestment.
Right. They're not protesting on campuses because they happen to be on campuses. The reason they're protesting on campuses is because they're protesting against the college, because the aim of the protest is to get the college to divest from Israel, which in no way is an endorsement of terrorism of any kind. And she just kind of admits that under very, very slight pushback. So now she goes on.
They were demanding that Columbia divest. They were demanding that Columbia.
Exactly, but that's not a
Hamas.
That doesn't mean that you know the anti-Israel protesters modeled themselves after the student movements in the 1980s that were against the apartheid regime. The main demand of which was, we demand that you divest from apartheid South Africa.
Okay.
That's what these students are demanding. That we
here's the
demand. That is
problem.
a peaceful protest, not a violent one.
The American students cannot be deported for having done that, but someone here on a green card can be.
There you go.
Damn
okay,
you
so
ignorant slut.
She just concedes to him that, okay, yeah, I mean, they're not pro-terrorism. It's not a terror group. But, okay, so I guess what they're doing is fine. What Americans could be doing is fine, but Mahmoud Khalil can't do that because he's not an American. This reminds me so much of, oddly enough, as we're going to see in this next piece of video, where Glenn Greenwald raises the example about January 6th and peaceful protests versus nonviolent protests and the injustice of lumping in peaceful January 6th protesters with the January 6th protesters who assaulted police and such. It all comes back to the same question we had for liberals. Whenever we would talk about censorship on like big tech platforms, and the liberals would come back with the private company defense. That was their big defense, right? Well, Facebook is a private company. You don't have free speech on a private company's server. They can censor you for what they want. I would always urge people, come back with them when they say that to, okay, forget about whether or not they can censor. Ask yourself whether or not they should censor. Are you for censorship or not? Yes, we know a private company has the right to censor speech. Should they? Because the question of should they or should they not censor speech speaks to your priorities politically and your commitment or lack thereof to free speech. So the same, when you apply the same test here and you say, okay, well, let's say the government did have some authority by which they could deport him. Let's just say they did. Should they? Should someone on a student visa be treated this way for exercising speech? Because at that point, they have no place to hide, and that's what she backed into there. Even if you could raise the Nationality Act of 1952 and talk about how, he is advocating against our foreign policy priorities, should you do that? And if you answer yes, that exposes you for being against free speech in nature.
Well, they're using these various articles under the Patriot Act to essentially try to move the goalpost to, if you are not an American citizen, you don't have the rights of the Constitution, which of course is not at all true. It defies all legal precedent and the whole premise of our Constitution. Anyone within the country has those protections. So they're trying to find these things aimed at terrorism and sedition to try to get around the Constitution. But really, they're trying to convince the population, as they often do, whether it's true or legal, the way Elon has said, it's almost like elections don't matter and these unelected judges have. Yes, they do.
Right.
They do. That's the Constitution. Yeah. But he knows that people who follow him and take him seriously and don't realize he's a psychopathic asshole don't know that. They don't know that actually, yes, that's how the whole system is set up. This isn't some subversion of the Constitution. It's literally the Constitution. Same thing. You're seeing these propagandists like Megyn Kelly really try to convince their audience that there is no such protection for non-Americans.
Right, exactly. So I set that up kind of in abstractions because they talk about these things more specifically in this clip, which leads directly into the clip that we just saw. So here are some more specific examples of what we're talking about.
2 or 3 years arguing with liberals. What I've spent, 2 or 3 years arguing with liberals by arguing that they had wildly overstated what January 6th was and had unjustly prosecuted the people who were there, especially the ones who never engaged in violence. And what they would tell me is, what do you mean? Here are the people who are beating police officers. This was not a nonviolent protest. And I would say, okay, well, punish the people who used violence against the police officers, but you can't impute that to the entire protest.
You can.
No,
This is different. The January 6 people, they're white people, don't you know? When white people
Isn't she
act
also
out-
a lawyer?
Yeah.
Doesn't she have a law degree?
Does she have a law degree? I don't know. I always assumed she was just, someone Roger Ailes picked out of a line. I don't know. Maybe she does. But if she does, that's even more embarrassing because, that really is what you're talking about. I mean, look, I said on January 7th, 2021, that the January 6 people are going to be railroaded and overcharged, and they were, and I supported Trump's decision to pardon all of them. But January 6th was a protest that did turn violent, in my opinion, with the help of the FBI. But there were people in there who did take it upon themselves, nonetheless, to, take a swing at a cop or whatever. And that was done with the express intent, not, in my opinion, of overthrowing the government, but of disrupting an official government proceeding. Point is, shoe being on the other foot, of course, the conservatives would have a problem with that if something like that had happened from a leftward direction. If the Democrats did a rally like that, right? So obviously. All right, here we go.
And
You're
yes,
taking-
she is a lawyer. She actually worked as a lawyer.
Ah, interesting.
To the entire
Yes,
protest.
you can.
No, you're taking
You
the
100%
worst
can when you're
acts.
talking about terror and immigration. No, you're in it. We're talking about apples and oranges. That's a very different thing. You can't charge somebody with crime by thought or by affiliation unless it's an actual conspiracy. But we don't have to prove that he committed a crime. We don't have to prove that. Although I believe he probably did. If he's the spokesperson for this group, then you could allege extortion. You could allege conspiracy. Now, Alvin Bragg is unlikely to do that, but that doesn't mean crimes haven't been committed by this guy. We'll have to see where the evidence goes. They're looking into that right now, including the DOJ. But we don't have to prove a crime. It's enough that he did it. If he did these things, if he acted as a spokesperson for this group that did commit crimes on the campus of Columbia, he's out. You can get him out under numerous provisions under immigration law for criminality, for supporting terror, for espousing terror, and then ultimately for the Marco Rubio Secretary of State thing that says if you're a threat to foreign policy, you're gone. You don't have to prove anything other than Marco Rubio reasonably believes that.
The Bill of Rights still restricts what Marco Rubio can do, even though he's the Secretary of State. The Bill of Rights applies to green card holders. The Supreme Court has said that for 120 years. And if Joe Biden had said, I'm deporting Jordan Peterson because he's expressing a lot of dissent to my views and participating in protest against our policy, and I deem him a threat to foreign policy, every conservative in the country would have said that is a threat to the Constitution to do. I think the important thing here is
has to be reasonable. There's nothing unreasonable about saying being the spokesperson for an on-campus terror group means you violated your terms of staying here and your green card is getting revoked.
I think you're wildly.
And that leads us into the beginning where we picked up in the previous clip, where she already admitted a minute later that, okay, it's not necessarily a terror group, but they're protesting divestment. The Jordan Peterson line is a brilliant line because Jordan Peterson from Canada, when Jordan Peterson tweets a thing like this in 2023 under President Joe Biden, yes, the West is escalating the Russia-Ukraine war. Make no mistake about it. We're fighting World War III. The only question now is how far will we take it? Yeah, when he expresses a dissenting view on the Ukraine war, according to Megyn Kelly, Joe Biden could have said, here's a foreigner who's in our country. He's in our country at our pleasure. He is protesting against our foreign policy imperatives, and therefore he is a threat to our foreign policy mission, and therefore he has to go back. According to what Megyn Kelly is saying, Joe Biden would have been perfectly empowered to do that. But of course, had he done such a thing, you would have heard nonstop outrage 24/7 from right-wing media circles. So It's a great point that he brought up there. And the other point is the Bill of Rights applies to green card holders, which supersedes everything else. That's it. It's a matter of constitutionality. And there's court precedent that says that the First Amendment applies to green card holders. And she's pretending not to know that. All you have to do in a situation like this is ask, if the shoe were on the other foot, what would the reaction be? And there is no more brilliant example of that in my mind than Greenwald going to Jordan Peterson, right? What if a Canadian dissents against our foreign policy agenda? Do we have the right to send him back to Canada?
Yeah.
Yes or no? What would your reaction be if that happened?
Right. What happens when we have a woke president and they want to deport William Shatner? He said very mean things about the new Star Trek.
Yeah, right.
With
Exactly.
the black captain, you know, hey,
yeah,
you know, you're open. Look at what you're opening the door to. No, look, everybody in politics is basically a disgusting hypocrite. You know, it goes for both sides. Of course, here you're talking about people who for years have been screaming, and it's something we've agreed with, actually, that the January 6th defendants were overcharged, that it was a stretch to call it terrorism. Now they're willing to accept a much lesser standard for terrorism, as long as it's coming from their team, and as long as, in many cases, it's in service to a Zionist agenda. All of a sudden, all this stuff has just gone out the window. I mean, they all just look like absolute fools. We saw this after October 7th, to be fair. It's not really sudden. We saw this coming. Most of them demonstrated that their belief in free speech only extended to the shores of Israel, and anything having to do with Israel, all that went out the window. And now they have what they see as their team in office, and they can do no wrong, and they will do backflips. And as I just looked up, yes, Megyn Kelly indeed is a lawyer making these kinds of arguments. Just as with rank and file people defending this administration, we've been saying it's not going to age well. It's going to be very bad for these people over time. I don't think people have really fully conceived the level of ruin and suffering that the country is going to go through because of the policies of this administration. Anybody who gassed up this administration or tried to defend it is going to have a very hard time maintaining an audience, I think, going forward. I think these people like Megyn Kelly and, yes, Joe Rogan, all these people who gassed this up, they're not going to look good. They're not going to look good when people really see the consequences of this, because they look to these commentators expecting them to know more than they do.
Right.
And hey, I'm just an idiot. That's not gonna wash.
No, and this is a pretty open and shut thing. I mean, everything she says there is bullshit. Almost every single thing she says. And if you watch the whole segment, it's unbelievable. I mean, we could have done an hour on this if we wanted to. She talks about how, well, Mahmoud Khalil worked with UNRWA, so that proves he's pro-Hamas because UNRWA is Hamas. 12 UNRWA members were accused without evidence, still to this day without evidence, of having participated in October 7th. 12 out of 30,000.
They just executed 15 aid workers.
Yeah.
They just executed
Yeah.
15 aid workers.
Yeah.
Like, this is what you're aligning yourself with.
Yep.
You know,
Exactly.
in the end, they're not going to be able to maintain the propaganda, because when people have no money in their pocket, they start looking under the surface of things. And they don't when their pockets are full, as a rule. But they're not going to be full. This administration has been in office for 2.5 months. They're laying the groundwork more quickly than I think anyone could have imagined for the total destruction of the American economy.
Yep.
Total destruction of the social safety net. What do you think that's going to be like in a year? Megyn Kelly, Joe Rogan, all these people that's still going to be there trying to defend this or deflect to trans people or whatever shit. I mean, people don't have the luxury of worrying about tampons in the boys' bathroom when they can't feed their families. You're not going to be able to deflect to that for very much longer.
And this deportation shit is all they have now. It's all they have at this point
Right.
is getting people excited about deporting brown people, for the most part, who hate America. That's
and
really all they have.
What are you going to do when they find out that that didn't create higher wages and more jobs for them? What are you going to do? We just did a story about this in Florida. They have only 77 people for every 100 jobs. Now that they're deporting all of these immigrants, where are all these Americans who are going to take these jobs? So now they're trying to loosen the child labor laws so they can fill these positions. What's going to happen when people find out the big Michael Bay video of the people being deported? That's all they're getting.
Right. Exactly. And so many of them are innocent people who are now being plunged into hell, which we'll get to.
Into hell, literally.
In a little bit. Yes, absolutely. All right. If you got more videos to add, you should add those now. I don't know if you did already.
They're in.
They're in. Okay, cool. All right. Well, folks, if you like what we do here, you can help us do more of it by becoming a member. Patreon.com/DoDissidents, DoDissidents.substack.com, or you can join our locals at DoDissidents.locals.com. Our membership is what drives the show. We could not do this show without our members, so thank you all for signing up. It's as little as $5 a month or $50 a year, which saves you a little bit of money in the long run if you want to make an annual subscription at locals. That's DoDissidents.locals.com. You get lots of perks. You get your name up in lights here on the show credits. You also get call-in access to our Q&As every Sunday night, once a week, after the main show. You also get live stream access to our pre-recorded full-length interviews. You get full ad-free replays of every live stream emailed to you the day after the live stream airs. So if you miss a show and you don't want to watch ads every few minutes on the main replays, you get your own private link with an ad-free replay of every live stream. People are really enjoying that feature. Plus, you get 2 full-length live streams, member-only live streams per month. 1 movie club live stream and 1 content and call-in live stream. So that's a lot for only $5 a month. We try to make it as worthwhile as we can for you because our supporters are the backbone of the show. We do need supporters to keep things on track. We are looking to expand our on-the-ground reporting operation, equipment upgrades, hiring some personnel to go on the ground when we cannot. That all costs money, and that is all supported by your membership. So DoDissidents.locals.com. You could also go to Patreon.com/DoDissidents, or you can join our Substack at DoDissidents.substack.com. Dealer's choice, whatever you prefer on that front. But thank you all very much for your support.
Just a quick update. So some interesting specifics. Apple is down almost 10%. That's unheard of. I don't think I've ever seen that.
Well, I
In
heard
one day
something
for
about
Apple.
I heard something about a $3,500 iPhone. I heard that maybe is it because of Taiwan? What's the deal? Is something going to make them more expensive?
Well, the tech sector in general. So Micron, which is a microchip manufacturer, they're down almost 15%. Amazon's down almost 8%.
Yep.
Disney's down almost 8%. Everything tourism related, airlines, Norwegian Cruise Lines is down almost 15%. The banks are getting hit. JP Morgan's down over 6%. Yeah, it's a bloodbath.
I'm leaving on a jet plane.
There we go. Oh boy, what a day, huh? Liberation Day, as they say. That's liberation. You feel liberated? Are you not liberated?
Are you not liberated?
Yes. No.
People being liberated from their wallets.
Yeah. Yep, that's true. Their money's being liberated. That's for sure. Ed Campbell, GDMPB, vote red, vote blue, vote red, etc. The next vote will surely fix it. We are pathetic. Thank you, GDMPB. Edward Campbell says Trump's second presidency is a Democrat ploy to make them a popular party. There you go, an inside job, the whole thing. CEB Applejack.
5D chess.
Yeah, 5D chess, that's right. So if we don't tariff Russia, does that mean the tariffs are targeted since we aren't targeting them? Yes, that was people made mention of that as well. Benny Ford, thank you. In regards to Burr, MLK and John Lennon had loud reaching voices that were so big it created enough fear to silence them. Indeed. Furrows Queen says, update. I told you guys I applied to be a union rep at work. Update. I've been accepted. Oh, and get training shortly.
Nice.
Oh, all because of the DD gang. Well, that's great. It was the Amazon film that tipped me over. Oh, well, great. Thank you, Furrows Queen. That's
very
awesome.
cool.
Great to hear.
That
Congratulations.
makes it all worth it.
That's right. Congratulations. Glenn is making blood come out of Megyn Kelly's eyes. Yes, there was blood coming out of her eyes.
Blood coming
different
out
time.
everywhere.
Blood coming out of her wherever. Hey, DD, it doesn't apply to Jordan Peterson's tweets because that's purely speech. Kelly's talking about speech, which becomes conduct. I think Kelly's right. Great show. What conduct? What conduct has he been even accused of? Like, where is the conduct? I don't know what you're talking about.
How about the Turkish woman they literally arrested for co-writing an op-ed?
Right.
Had never even
Exactly.
been
What
involved in a
conduct?
demonstration.
Exactly. What conduct?
That's speech, right?
It's RICO. That's what they're doing.
They're
It's-
doing RICO, right?
They're doing RICO.
holding everybody responsible for all the members in a group.
Exactly. All right, let's keep moving on. All right. Woke is back.
Woke is back, baby. All right, so we have covered the Ibram X. Kendi madness quite a lot over the years. The whole anti-racism formulation was so obviously designed to create division and strife and to actually exacerbate racial tensions that I've pretty much come to the conclusion they elevated people like Kendi as an op to keep people from uniting along class lines. So here's one of his nuggets from how to be an anti-racist. The opposite of racist isn't not racist. It is anti-racist. What's the difference? One endorses either the idea of a racial hierarchy as a racist or racial equality as an anti-racist. One either believes problems are rooted in groups of people as a racist or locates the roots of problems in power and policies as an anti-racist. One either allows racial inequities to persevere as a racist or confronts racial inequities as an anti-racist. There is no in-between safe space of not racist. So the whole formulation is it's not enough to not be an active racist. You have to be an active anti-racist.
Right.
So here's Ben Shapiro commenting, as many conservative commentators did with some glee, when his whole foundation at Harvard blew up for over $40 million in unaccounted for funds. And if you notice, you haven't seen a lot of reporting about that since.
Grift. Ibram X. Kendi is a massive grifter. He's always been a massive grifter. This is a dude who was asked to define racism, and he said racist policies leading to racist conclusions backed by racist ideas, which is like saying define an elephant. And I'm like, it's an animal that looks like an elephant and acts like an elephant. That's not a definition, but that's the whole point. The only way to avoid Ibram X. Kendi calling you a racist is to sign him a giant check that he can then use for any particular purpose. How many times does this grift have to be shown to be a grift before people stop giving money to the grift? Patrisse Cullors at Black Lives Matter? Anybody?
Apparently one more time.
Apparently one more time. So, you could formulate that another way. Making the formulation that being critical of the state of Israel makes you an anti-Semite, and the only way that you can avoid being called an anti-Semite is to support the state of Israel, is a similarly illogical, circular notion that Ben not only is not spoken out about, but is largely embraced. So here's a rabbi. He tells a Senate hearing on anti-Semitism that it's not enough to be not anti-Semitic. This sounds very, very familiar. Let's hear it.
Anti-Semitism is not just an age-old prejudice. It is a contemporary crisis manifesting on campuses across the nation. It is not enough for individuals or institutions to merely claim they are not anti-Semitic. As my father once taught me, it is not enough for people, especially public figures, to be neutral or not be anti-Semitic. One must be anti-Semitic. We must demand the same of our universities and government institutions. This hearing, in my opinion, is an attempt to be just that, anti-Semitic.
That is literally exactly Ibram X. Kendi. And one has to wonder, because he says he heard it from his father. Maybe Kendi stole it
Yeah.
Maybe he stole it from the rabbi's father. So Matt Walsh noticed this. This is a page right out of the BLM playbook. The same rhetoric, almost word for word. Now, some of the responses were pretty interesting. Here is the Pedro Pascal of podcasters, Ian Carroll, in every conversation. The day you decide to leave the Daily Wire, you will have an army of accounts, big and small, ready to support your next venture, Matt. We all want to see you make your own mark on the media landscape like Tucker, Candace, and Brett have. Now, I would argue one of the reasons Walsh may have felt comfortable saying something like that is, according to some reporting, Daily Wire may be on its last legs anyway, so he doesn't give a shit anymore. Aidan Doyle, you're about to be fired from the Daily Wire. I don't think he cares anymore. The People's Champ. Okay, so you had quite a few Zionists who came back trying to argue it's not the same thing. No, it's not. Blacks weren't being physically prevented from going to classes and being attacked physically for being black. Come on.
Oh, no, that's true. No black people in America have ever been physically attacked because they're black. Wow.
Or blocked from going to a school.
Or blocked from going to a school, right.
That's never happened in this country.
You ever see the Spike Lee documentary, Four Little Girls? It was a great film about that, about how some girls were murdered for trying to go to school because they were black.
You might want to look that up. And I'd also like to see who these Jewish people are that you claim were prevented from going to classes, because so far I have seen no evidence of that whatsoever. I've seen claims of it. I've seen cry bullies claim they can't go to class because they can't go to class a certain way because there's a protest.
Right.
Nobody's actively blocking them specifically with intent from going to class. They're having a protest. There are people that way, so you go this way.
Right. There's multiple entrances to all these buildings.
There are multiple entrances, but they want to go that way.
Right.
Okay. All right. And here's some evidence of the danger that I keep talking about that the Zionists are creating. So here's Nick Fuentes. Damn, that's crazy. Maybe you should stop working for them. What them do you think Nick Fuentes means? Do you think he means Zionists, or do you think he means Jews? This is what I mean when I say it would be very easy if you just get a little bit of a shift in rhetoric at the top to empower the anti-Semitic movement that Zionists claim to be rescuing Jews from. But as you've pointed out and others have pointed out, that's exactly what they want, because they want everyone to think they have to go to Israel.
Right.
Steven Crowder, to his credit, spoke out about this. So let's hear that.
Enough of you saying, hey, I'm American first. And even if I think that anti-Semitism is gross, it's horrible, of course, as an American and a citizen of this country, where my loyalty lies, I have to protect the right of individuals to express their opinions and exercise the First Amendment, provided they are not committing a crime or actually calling people to violence. This is bad. This is a bad look. This is a bad message. It's going to sow more division. And the very fact that I am saying this, and I know that there will be people mad on both sides, is what makes this bad. Let me make it really clear. People like this rabbi, not all Jews, and certainly not all American Jews. It's not enough to be anti-Semitic. You, as a public figure, have to be anti-Semitic. Shut up. You don't get special treatment.
Right. Okay, that's what you call ideological consistency. Now, on the other side of the spectrum, you got Michael Knowles, who I guess realizes he probably doesn't really have enough talent to make a career outside of Daily Wire. Makes the absurd claim that they welcome all views at the Daily Wire.
Yeah.
People now at this point believe that the Daily Wire, for example, is an Israel first organization, which is why people like that are trying to
Why would you get that impression?
Because more pro-Israel.
I mean, obviously Ben Shapiro's a Jew, but why else would you get that impression?
Yeah, it's because we can't get policies that are pro-America, we still can't
we
even
don't
get
make
our
policy
own.
at the Daily Wire. We're a media company.
Oh, I understand what
so
you're
we've
saying.
got me.
Yeah, in the literal
well, I mean,
sense,
what is the
yes.
Daily Wire? The Daily Wire is Ben. Obviously, he was the first talent that they hired, and Ben's a Jew, and people have big problems with Ben for being a Jew. I have problems with Ben for other reasons, but, people have big problems with Ben because he wears the yarmulke. But then what else is the Daily Wire? The Daily Wire is Matt Walsh. He's a Catholic. The Daily Wire is Michael Knowles. I'm a Catholic. I've been there since day 2. The Daily Wire is Andrew Klavan. He's an ethnic Jew. People might have problems with that.
Candace Owens, Jeremy Boring.
So Jeremy Boring's a Protestant. Look, I got plenty of problems with the Protestants, okay? People sometimes say, Michael, how can you work for the Daily Wire? How can you work for those dastardly Jews? I say, it's much worse than that. I work for the Protestants, man. It's so much worse.
Fair.
So I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Even on the subject of Israel, which is obviously an important topic for a lot of people, Daily Wire has total variety of opinions on the state of Israel. Obviously, Ben cares about it a lot, and Matt wants to defund like every single country on earth. I'm a little bit more practical and prudential, I think, about my views.
What about Candace Owens, who's not there anymore?
Yeah. So you might have heard something about this, about Candace Owens, their biggest star, arguably, but I think not very arguably their greatest talent at the Daily Wire. You could make an argument for Matt Walsh, but I would say she has a little bit of an edge in terms of the breadth of her appeal. Definitely the biggest star over there. And they got rid of her. They got rid of her for what? For speaking out against Zionism. That's a pretty strange choice to get rid of your biggest star if a wide range of views are allowed at the Daily Wire. Now he makes the point that most of their lineup is not Jewish. Fair enough, but their entire lineup, with the exception of Matt Walsh, is fanatically Zionist. And Matt Walsh is really just making an isolationist argument rather than an anti-Zionist argument.
And also, if I could just add real quick, Knowles makes the very lazy and intentionally misleading formulation, and he means this as a dodge. Well, yeah, I mean, Shapiro's Jewish, so some people don't like him for being Jewish. They don't like that he wears a yarmulke. Right. No, nobody doesn't like him for being Jewish. People don't like him for being fanatically pro-Israel and censorious on the subject.
Sure.
I.e., Candace Owens not there anymore.
All right. So I do believe that Matt Walsh would not have tweeted that a year ago. But they're on their way out, according to many sources. According to Dominic Michael Trippi, he did a whole thread on this. Daily Wire reportedly hires bankruptcy attorney, lays off 25% of staff. James Lee, who's a producer for Breaking Points, says, I can also confirm from multiple sources the Daily Wire has indeed hired a bankruptcy attorney. Looks like they're on their last legs. And a commentator here said, as Daily Wire enters bankruptcy, it should be known that some commentators were simply actors afraid to voice their true policy sentiments. Matt Walsh is one of them. His 2013 editorial, Bow Before Israel, Unless You're an Anti-Semite, is a prime example. So you can look that up on your own. But yes, at one time, he was much more outspoken on this subject, always from the point of view, why are we sending money to Israel? But right. He also spoke out more on what this rabbi is taking to its logical extreme, that it's a third rail to speak out against Israel, and it shouldn't be. That's what he gets into in that article. It's hard to imagine that he would write an article like that while working for the Daily Wire. But I think the fact that he tweeted what he tweeted about this rabbi indicates that he knows the writing is on the wall and is starting to feel more comfortable saying what he actually thinks.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's just not sustainable. Like, this level of cognitive dissonance about this is just not gonna fly for much longer. Like how could it? Right. How could it possibly? How could Matt Walsh not comment on that, given his body of work? How could he not point out that this is exactly what BLM says? Like, him being silent about that would have spoken more volumes than the comment that he made. Like, at a certain point, it's so glaring and in your face that these people on the right are just not going to be able to balance it. And, to Steven Crowder's credit, from what I know of him, he has always been consistent on the speech issue. You know,
Right.
he was one of the first and most high-profile examples of YouTube just going nuclear on him for speech.
Right.
And so he has been consistent on that to his credit. So I expected him to take that line. With Walsh, it's an open question. Are you going to go there? Are you going to make trouble with the boss? But this is what I mean. At a certain point, like just when he got demonetized for the misgendering stuff and they
Right.
said, well, if you don't do it anymore, or if you say you're sorry for doing it, if you don't do it again, we'll give you your monetization back. He's like, yeah, well, that's a career ender too, because that just
Right.
proves that I'm
Right.
for sale. Same
Right.
thing here. Like if you don't comment on, if you don't make the obvious, clear as day observation that, hey, this is exactly the language of Ibram X. Kendi coming out of the mouth of a Jewish guy, and we're supposed to stomach it. No, thank you. If he didn't say that, he would have been accused of basically, selling out to Ben Shapiro. So he had to. At a certain point, they're going to have to. Like, this is not going to be sustainable much longer.
Yeah, it's also funny seeing him use that language, which almost certainly his father did not use that language, even if he said
Right.
something along those lines. Most of these Zionists are libs. Like
Right.
that's where he got that language from. A lot of
Exactly.
them after October 7th explicitly made the argument that they should be included with the groups that have protected status,
Right,
and it
exactly.
demonstrates anti-Semitism that they're not.
Right. Exactly. Be doing, thanks for the $5. Thanks to Russ for the recommendation on What's the Matter with Kansas and Listen Liberal. Yep, those
Oh,
great
yeah.
reads. Great reads, of course. Trump's voice. There was blood coming out of her eyes, blood coming out of her wherever. Such a nasty woman, that Megyn Kelly. That's right. Stoop Sign says, I just narrowly avoided inpatient psych hospitalization. My rehab didn't believe I'd been a fundraiser, comedian, and journalist before being a scumfuck dilettante. Freedom. All right, well, congratulations. Make sure you take care of yourself there, Stoop Sign. All right. Devane says, anti-Semitism is here. I got Trump and Kamala voters that don't like Jews at work. Something unthinkable a few years ago. I tell them to differentiate between Zionism and Jews. It's getting worse. Yeah, it will continue to get worse.
I see it
unfortunately.
getting worse. I see
Yeah.
the conversation getting worse.
Yeah. I mean, yes, that is certainly something that we have observed over the past year or so. And, that continues to accelerate. And, when you see a guy like Randy Fine, just embody these kinds of stereotypes, yeah, it's very, very harmful to Jews, which is part of why, a small part of why we speak out about this. Obviously, I just feel compelled to do it as a human being, not as a Jewish guy. But as a Jewish guy, I feel I have extra responsibility to do that. Because it is being done somewhat in my name since I'm a Jewish guy, but also B, because I don't want this to reflect on all Jews, because I don't think that's fair either. Max Blumenthal said, what did he say? He says, I think Jews were chosen to do good deeds or something like that. Forget what he put it, but he basically said, when he thinks of Jews as chosen people, it's being chosen to be an example of how you can endure suffering without unleashing it on others, which is exactly the opposite of the Zionist project. Right. I'm sorry if I'm misquoting him. I'm paraphrasing, but I think that's the essence of what he said on our show, and I thought that was a very, very profound thing to say. Okay, what do we got here? WVP. It's Vito. I guess Emmett Till was just a victim of harassment. What an idiot. Cancer sucks, you guys rock. Yeah, like what a fucking insane comment that is to say. Yeah.
Flags weren't flagged for going to school. How could you be that historically illiterate?
How the fuck do you say that? Exactly. Yep. Dwayne Vogel, I'm just a jagoff comedian, Jimmy Dore. Well, that's true, but that's exactly the point, is that Jimmy says I'm a jagoff comedian, which is why it's embarrassing that I am called upon to comment on politics. But he does. He doesn't say don't listen
but he
to
does.
me
He doesn't.
right. He doesn't do the thing
if you
of like,
ask Jimmy that question, you'd get 10 minutes.
Exactly. Like he's not saying, it's one thing to say, hey, as a jagoff comedian, as a comedian, it's kind of embarrassing that it falls to me to speak truths that media people won't speak, but I'll do them. I'm not going to duck them and say, well, don't ask me. I'm just a comedian.
Yes.
Exactly. Right. And that's why I thought, like, part of what Bill Burr, if he had just stopped there, would be like, hey, why don't you do your fucking job rather than ask me? That would have been fine. But instead of, well, I don't really follow the news. That's not true.
Right. Yeah, that's ridiculous.
Exactly. Yes, Bill does make political comments as the uppies, but comedians should be the last place people look for truth. Well, exactly. I think that's part of what he's talking about. Media outlets shouldn't be going to comedians for serious input, but they have to because the media sucks. The media sucks. That's what Jimmy says. He says it's because the media sucks that I'm able to do the show, right? It creates an opening, and that's what created the opening for this space.
Sure.
And that's another thing that's been kind of sad to see is that this space sort of succumbed to the same incentives that the corporate media space does in a lot of examples.
Yes.
Pete Sweets, speaking of Jose, was he sitting behind Oliver Stone at the House Committee on JFK? Like, where's Waldo? Yeah, he was there. That was him. That was him, and he was talking to, he knows Oliver Stone's been on his show before. Oh, Jose has a channel called Declaring Independence. He interviewed Oliver Stone. And, Oliver Stone was, like, showing him his phone. I guess they know each other. But, yeah, it was kind of wild seeing him right there, front row, behind Oliver Stone. He was on Hardlands today. I guess they talked about that. We should bring him on soon, probably. Damaris Tapia, thanks for the $4.99. Kelly once said the Muslim countries I didn't like, the Muslim countries didn't like the West because women wear tank tops. She plays dumb, panders to her audience. Yeah, no, that is just, what did Nick Cruz say? Zionism is Karenism, and that's what she is. Yes. Yeah. Zionism is Karenism. Atomic Toaster, yo, thanks for the $4.99. Terrorists coming here to get PhDs and become productive members of society. This is like the worst Die Hard movie ever. Yeah. John Locke, thanks for the $20. 10 years ago, a cop in Texas body slammed a 90-pound black girl by her hair, and Megyn Kelly went on national TV and said the girl had it coming for mouthing off. She hasn't changed at all. No, I mean, it's obviously, look, the formulation is so obvious. I mean, it's the most obvious formulation in the world. Well, January 6th, that's different. Yeah, why? Why is it? How? How is it different? For what reason? The strength of Megyn Kelly's argument is she is pretty. Yes, thank you, Artie Barty. Fart blast. All right, we got more super chats to read. We will get to those. We got a couple more segments to do, so we will get to everything in due time. Thank you guys for being generous with the super chat. See, this is one way to tell that our audience is not invested in the stock market is the volume of super chats we have received today. Yeah. If you guys were holding stock, we wouldn't be getting all these super chats.
Yeah, yes. I mean, they've done a lot of studies in hard economic times. People actually buy more drugs, and we have a lot of dealers.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, on a serious note,
there's like a bonanza for them.
The movies do well in tough times, and in the post-Hollywood era, who knows? Maybe there will be a podcast boom in tough times. It's free. Yeah. I mean, you sit home watch a podcast for free. You know what I mean? It's not like it's not like you gotta
actually,
I
think that's very likely.
Yeah, bring it on, right? Haha, just kidding. All right, what do we got? I'm up, right? What do we got? Oh yeah, this story. Okay. All right, folks. So. You have probably heard of this story, although given the increasing frequency at which stories surface of wrongfully deported migrants, you may not have heard of this yet, but he is not a gang member. Outrage as U.S. deports makeup artist to El Salvador prison for crown tattoos. That's right. For as long as anyone can remember, Andre Jose Hernandez Romero was enthralled by the annual Three Kings Day celebrations for which his Venezuelan hometown is famed, joining thousands of fellow Christians on the streets of Capacho to remember how the trio of wise men visited baby Jesus bearing gold, frankincense, and myrrh. At age 7, Andre became a mini king, as members of the town's youth drama group Los Mini Reyes were known. Later in life, he tattooed 2 crowns on his wrists to memorialize those carnival-like Epiphany commemorations and his Catholic roots. The Latin American tradition appears to have been lost on the U.S. immigration officers who detained Hernandez, a 31-year-old makeup artist, hairdresser, and theater lover, after he crossed the southern border last August to attend a prearranged asylum appointment in San Diego. Hernandez, who is gay, told agents he was fleeing persecution stemming from his sexual orientation and political views. Just weeks earlier, Venezuela's authoritarian leader, Nicolas Maduro, had unleashed a ferocious crackdown after being accused of stealing the presidential election to extend his 12-year rule. Now, before half the audience has a fit about that, the reason it's important to include that, whether you agree with those statements or not, is the same reason it's important to mention that in the context of so many other of these cases, which are these are a lot of these people, whether they're from Cuba or Venezuela, a lot of these people here seeking asylum and actually getting hearings and actually going through the process. These are largely anti-communist dissidents who have a long history of being welcomed with open arms for obvious reasons by the United States. So whether you love what they're about politically or not, the important point here is that these are people who have most reason to believe they'll be accepted here, being treated in this way. But Hernandez's tattoos were deemed proof he was a member of Venezuela's most notorious gang, the Tren de Aragua, and a security threat to the U.S. Detainee Hernandez sports tattoos, I guess, sports, they quoted that a misspell, sports tattoos crowns that are consistent with those of a Tren de Aragua member, an agent at California's Otay Mesa Detention Center claimed, according to court documents published this week. Those 16 words appeared to have sealed the fate of the young Venezuelan stylist who friends, family, and lawyers say has never committed a crime. And so the tattoos said mom and dad on them. Like, it's just the most fucking insane, ridiculous thing you've ever heard. So much so that Konstantin Kassin and Joe Rogan both agree that this is over the line. It's horrific. Joe Rogan reacts to the story of Trump's ICE grabbing innocent people with no criminal record like a gay makeup artist and sending him to a hard labor prison in El Salvador. So here they are.
Get made.
Right.
And I think, but that's also when mistakes get made.
Right.
And I think a human being being plucked out of nowhere and ending up in a country he's never been in a maximum security prison with gang members, seems like a bad thing to happen to me.
It's horrific. It's horrific.
I don't think that should be controversial.
No, that's not controversial at all. And this is the thing, measured twice, cut once. This is this is kind of crazy that could be possible. That's horrific. And that's bad for the cause. Like, the cause is, let's get the gang members out. Everybody agrees. But let's not innocent gay hairdressers get lumped up with the gangs. And then, how long before that guy can get out? Can we figure out how to get him out? Is there any plan in place to alert the authorities that they've made a horrible mistake and correct it?
Well, if you think about it from a government perspective, and this is where I think it gets quite sinister, is once you've done that, the incentive structure is never going to be to admit that and deal with it. The incentive structure is to say nothing, to cover it up, to pretend it didn't happen, right?
That is horrible.
So someone ends up in a black hole.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, I appreciate that, but unfortunately, in the case of this man and in many others, it's too late. It's too late because it was foreseeable that they were going to go as fast as they could with no regard for innocent people who get swept up in this. And what Constantine says there is not only correct, it's been proven. The El Salvadoran government is getting paid to do this. So talk about incentives. There is a reverse incentive for them to correct it. Number one. Number two, the response of J.D. Vance to a very similar story, which we covered on Tuesday's show, where a guy was swept up and sent to CCOT due to an administrative error, a guy who was accused.
Which they admitted, yeah.
Right. A guy who was accused of being a gang member because some guys who he got rounded up with at a Home Depot said he was, and the police, even in the police report, said there's no evidence. J.D. Vance's response when called out for an admitted error was essentially, go get your fucking shine box. He's an illegal who doesn't belong here. Anyway, number three, and this I don't know for sure, but from everything we've been hearing about CCOT, seems pretty likely that they couldn't find these people if they wanted to at this point. You're talking about tens of thousands of people crammed into these pens like chickens. How would they even find this guy if they wanted to? You're talking about tens of thousands of inmates. Like, it doesn't even seem like it would be possible to retrieve him at this point. Now, I don't know that for sure, but everything we're seeing seems very unlikely that they're going to be able to recover these people, and I hope to God that I'm wrong. But
like I say, who's Jose?
Yeah, exactly right. Like, what the fuck are you going to say? Like, yeah, how do you even do it with tens of thousands of people there? Exactly. So, you have some empathy there, some rare empathy from Constantine. And, Joe Rogan seems like a decent guy, but obviously has been on the wrong side of this issue for too long, to the point where it's a little late now, but we appreciate
that's why when you get a candidate to sit down with you for pretty much an unlimited interview, maybe ask them some hard questions instead of giving them a foot rub.
Exactly. But, Constantine seems generally to be a pretty terrible guy. Rogan, a not so terrible guy. This guy, though, a really terrible guy, whose response to this story is just stunning beyond what you would expect, even from a douchebag like Jesse Waters. So let's take a look at this.
Again, I don't trust the El Salvadorian government to be making sure that they're not torturing people, that they're vetting them properly. They need to be vetted on this side.
Democrats always say this could happen.
It did happen.
It did happen, you
didn't
fucking
could
moron.
happen.
I forgot about this fucking yap over here. Why are the Democrats talking? Why do you think they're talking about it, idiot? It's a news. It did happen. It did happen. That's what they're talking about.
Democrats always say this could happen.
It did happen. It's not. It didn't. Could
They're
happen.
torturing them?
Did you watch the video?
Torturing.
Yeah. Did you
I saw
read
them
the
shaving
Time
their
magazine?
heads.
Time magazine was there when the gay barber from Venezuela who had a crown tattoo that said "Mom" was being processed coming into the El
Jessica.
Salvadorian. Oh, am I boring you again? I'm sorry.
No, but you've been talking about this gay barber from El Salvador with some stupid tattoo for weeks.
Yeah.
Weeks, Jessica.
Come on.
It's just a gay barber.
He's not into you.
He's an innocent guy who got swept up in a deportation, and hopefully we get it figured out and straightened out. But a lot of people in this country, Jessica, get arrested for things that they didn't do, get falsely accused, falsely
I'm
convicted.
also against racial.
So
Be careful there. You sound like you're about to join BLM there.
Yeah.
Jesse.
I mean, it's
You're
just
acknowledging that, huh?
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Now, this is why people like this put so much time and energy into spreading anti-populist propaganda, substituting it with right-wing authoritarianism disguised as populism. Because you get a real revolution, they know they're going to CCOT.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Because that's the first thing you would do, right? You would drag these guys by their hair and throw them into that kind of prison so they can get a taste of it. What I would give to see Pirro in a prison like that.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Torture? Are they torture? Really? They're torturing them?
Yeah,
what are you
put
talking
her-
about what could happen?
Yeah, put her in there for a year and
Yeah,
then
see how
ask
you
her
like
if she thinks it's torture.
Yeah, ask her if she thinks it's torture. Exactly. So, Jesse Waters talks about how, some people get swept up in this. It kind of happens all the time. And, what are you going on and on about this gay barber? Well, this report here came out yesterday from NBC News. Government immigration scorecard for deportations relied on tattoos and social posts, court filings show. So let's take a look at some of the methodology that determines whether or not someone is swept up and sent to a torture prison or not. A document the American Civil Liberties Union filed in federal court Friday shows a copy of an alien enemy validation guide requiring immigration officials to act against Venezuelans over age 14 who are not U.S. citizens or permanent residents. The guide has instructions about how to determine whether a person is removable under the centuries-old Alien Enemies Act of 1798, which President Trump invoked last month to quickly deport over 200 Venezuelan nationals. It includes a type of scorecard of up to 81 points across 20 items and 6 categories. According to the guide, a tally of 8 points or higher, which includes a person's tattoos and social media posts displaying symbols that officials say have been linked to Tren de Aragua, can be grounds for deportation after consultation with a Department of Homeland Security supervisor or legal advisor. The document and 20 others from Tren de Aragua experts, as well as from attorneys and the deported men's relatives, are part of a federal lawsuit in which the ACLU argues that Trump's unprecedented invocation of the Alien Enemies Act is unlawful. The unreliability of the factors on the checklist reinforces why it is essential that these individuals are given due process to contest their inclusion in this unlawful process. Lee Gallant, the lead attorney at the ACLU working on the Alien Enemies Act lawsuit, told NBC News in a statement. Asked whether DHS considered the scorecard method to be an effective one, an agency spokesperson said in an email, DHS has thorough intelligence assessments to determine if an individual is a member of one of these vicious gangs. These terrorists are a threat to national security and the safety of Americans. The premise that these individuals are not gang members is based on faulty assumptions. A Trump administration official also told NBC News the White House has confidence in the ongoing efforts by immigration agents, saying their intelligence assessments go well beyond single tattoos. Well, apparently they don't. Apparently they don't, because we've seen people deported for having tattoos. A soccer player with a crown tattoo was deported, despite having hearings on the books. So obviously, tattoos in many cases are the single piece of criteria. Do you see how inhuman these people are? This is something that Elon could have come up with himself. Now, this is not his purview. This is not his jurisdiction, so I'm not saying he did do this, but this is the tech bro mentality at work. Rather than build a case against someone and actually present evidence against someone and take them to court, because that takes a lot of time and it involves balancing our opinions with the opinion of opposing counsel and convincing a judge. That takes a long time. You know what we're going to do instead? Let's come up with a list of criteria, and a streamlined way to do this would be, hey, anyone who checks this, and this box on the list, get rid of them. No due process, no judge, no hearing, no nothing. Let the nerds who believe in due process sort it out, and good luck keeping up with us. That's what this is. This is the move fast, break things ethos applied to immigration. This is why what really turned me hostile to the Trump campaign was when Elon joined it, because at that point it took on a much different character than it had previously. When you start marrying this just sociopathic ethic of just do as much as we want, as fast as we want it, fuck everybody else, fuck the people who get swept up in it. That's how shit like this happens. You got a list, a checklist. That's how you handle deportations, via a checklist. Yes, that's how they don't want to go through due process. That is beneath them. That is behind them. This is the future, baby, and this is their vision of it. And this is how these decisions are being made. And it makes perfect sense that they have some streamlined system like that with very, very few checks on it or checks within it. And cut to story after story after story coming out of innocent people being swept up in this. And the answer from the government is either, well, no, we have more evidence than we say we have, or fuck you at the end of the day. What are you going to do about it?
Yeah. Also, remember, there is a lot of pressure on these ICE agents to produce deportations.
Right.
You had a few headlines that at this point in Biden's term, he had deported more people. Trump, I'm sure he made some phone calls. What is this? What is this? I gave you guys all the powers you needed. Get rid of these people. Got that pressure. I remember outside Penn Station once, I saw a bunch of cops walking around talking about how they were going to go roust somebody because they had to make their numbers. Right? Like, hey, let's go look over there. Maybe we can find somebody. That's the position these ICE agents are in. And I'm sorry, no insult to law enforcement, but when they're doing this kind of massive recruitment of ICE agents, they're not bringing their best. They're bringing criminals. They're bringing rapists.
Right.
To quote our illustrious president announcing his campaign. But yeah, man, what do you think? These are the sharpest knives in the drawer there. You got the combination of the quality of people in the agency combined with the pressure to produce results. Hey, Joe, tattoo on the wrist, out of here.
Right.
But it would be bad enough if they simply created a regime like a normal, sane administration might to deport them back to their own country. But they took it to this level of this just insane, almost grindhouse movie premise where you're just going to grab anybody who fits this vague and clearly dodgy criteria and put them in a hellhole, in a place that would make most episodes of Locked Up Abroad look like a trip to Club Med. You're going to stick these people in an environment like that with no due process at all. I mean, the stories we're hearing are inevitable. If you told anyone you were going to do this, they would tell you that's what the result will be.
Yes, of course, because even when the government knows someone is a gang member, this is why gangs exist. This is why organized crime. Even when the government knows for sure that you're a gang member, it takes time to build a case against you to prove it. And now MAGA will look at that and say, well, that's why we have to move fast. Okay, well, the price of that, asshole, is that innocent people get sent to hell for no reason. That's why you have a system, all right? Yeah, at times it takes longer than you want it to. But you know why that exists? So that this doesn't happen. This doesn't happen. And God forbid it was your nonverbal autistic son that's in the back of the car when you get dragged out by ICE and get sent to hell. Right. That's what you have to think about, but they don't think about that. They have no, and this is what at the end of the day, it's just so incredibly mean spirited because the answer at the end of the day is, well, fuck them, they don't belong here. Oh, they do belong here. Well, at that point, what's your defense? At that point, is it just that they're brown? Is it just that they're Venezuelan and you don't like them here? That's what it kind of seems like to me, especially since the fact that the door is open for white South African farmers too. Can't leave that out. Sorry, go ahead.
And you're gonna argue it's okay with the white South African farmers because they have skills. Those skills being agricultural skills, and you're making that argument in contrast to people from South and Central fucking America, that they don't bring agriculture skills. Do you know that one of the biggest problems that farms and ranches have is that Americans don't know how to do that kind of work anymore? That's a big part of why they need people from that part of the world where they still have an agrarian society. So at that point, yes, it's about them being brown.
Yeah. I mean, look, we didn't go there immediately, but through process of elimination, folks, you left us with no other take. I mean, that's at the end of the day. Like, I mean, you make it plainly obvious, right? I mean, if the white South Africa thing doesn't give it away, I don't know what does. If the fact that these people have appointments on the book, the other guy that we talked about, I forget his name on Tuesday. The guy was going for regular appointments with ICE. He was in the system. He was on their radar. He was complying with what he had to comply with, and they dragged him out anyway. At that point, what else is it about?
You're not going to see them do this to any Ukrainians.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
You think any Ukrainians are going to CCOT?
Right. Yep. Indeed. Can the strike, hey gang, speech becomes conduct when it crosses the line into incitement, material support, or participation in prescribed activity, Immigration and Nationality Act. Yes, I know that act has been cited. They have not brought any specific accusations against Khalil, and as Greenwald said, there's court precedent for the Bill of Rights superseding that. Yeah. That is subservient to First Amendment. Right. So it is still an infringement on the First Amendment. And if you don't think it's an infringement on the First Amendment, then you must agree, as Greenwald said, that Joe Biden had the right to deport Jordan Peterson for speaking against the Ukraine war. That's in opposition to our foreign policy objectives.
Or William Shatner for speaking against woke Star Trek.
Right. Exactly. Conda strike. Check out Immigration and Nationality Act. Yes, we have. Yes, we have.
Yeah,
Thank you.
We got it.
But yes, we have. Devanes, wrong on balls deep in GameStop. There you go. Thanks, Devanes. Appreciate that. Will you bring RB Ham on to talk about his political campaign? I don't know if that would be weird or some kind of media collusion thing, but you've known him since before. Well, when those Canada elections are called, we may do a Canada episode. That's an idea. Luigi Vaccine, on a serious note, what about protest doctrine of stopping and grabbing anyone committing acts of violence, taking their picture, handing them over to cops, to curb crackdowns and expose FBI agents? Protest doctrine of stopping and grabbing anyone committing act of violence, taking their picture. What do you mean? What do you mean? What about a protest doctrine? Oh, you're talking about, will they implement that? Well, I don't know. I'm assuming that's what you're asking. On that score, we'll probably do it next week sometime, an episode about, or not a whole episode, but a fairly large segment about Project Esther, which is the Heritage Foundation paper. So from the minds who brought us Project 2025, they have a whole about 70-something page document about how to handle the pro-Palestine movement, how to basically defang it and dismantle it. And I started reading it, and yeah, that does seem to be the blueprint that they're following. So we probably will have more to say about that soon. Hamhawk, thanks for movie night. I'm still in recovery. FYI, Keaton, your voice on double speed is a dead ringer for Ben Shapiro. Use as you see fit. Is that right? Is that right? Dead
That's
ringer.
true. That's funny.
Yeah. Furrow Queen. Sorry, go ahead.
NASDAQ now down over 5%.
Wow.
Russell 2000 down 6%. S&P over 4%.
Wow. Furrow's Queen, Norm voice. Why is there always a small guitar player playing an unnaturally massive guitar in mariachi bands? They look odd. I just wanted a Norm impersonation. That's why. All right, well, you got it. Thank you, Furrow's Queen. Miriam Cotton says, get real, Kelly. If any of us had lived in Palestine the last 80 years under Israeli occupation, having our lands and homes violently taken for immigrants from New York. Yeah, indeed. Thank you. I don't know if I can read the rest of that, but yes. I understand what you're saying. Dana, thanks for the $20. I love Russell and his impersonations. Thank you, Dana. Appreciate that. Texas Grown, thanks for the $10. Here you could split a new tariff edition Big Mac, fellas. Yeah, there we go. For $10. Thank you. Amazing Blumkin, Glenn should have said easy now. You've got blood coming out of your eyes. Ah, good one. You can't be a non-genocider if you have to be. I like that. You can't be a non-genocider. You have to be an anti-genocider. Good one, Artie Barty Fart Blast. Thank you for that. It's a me. Thanks for the $9.99. If one person could be extrajudicially disappeared, each and every one of us could be. Yes. Also, I don't support this, but the Daily Wire is an example of why China doesn't allow free speech. LMA. Oh, thank you. It's a me. Mr. Fancy Pants, half my 401k cash out. Oh boy. Oh boy. Yeah, that's no good. That's what I'm saying, man. This could be big. This could
It's
be big.
ugly, man. Bond 10-year bond yields are dropping. It's a bloodbath, man.
Yep. And for what? For what? That's what you have to. This is what people have to understand.
Well, in 10 years, you're going to have the biggest, most beautiful factories.
Yeah, exactly. Right. I mean, that's what they want you to believe they believe. That's what they want you to think they think. They're doing this to try and pay for tax cuts. They're trying to substitute tariffs for income tax so that they don't have to pay any income tax anymore.
Right.
They've spoken. They said it. They said, we used to have a time in America, pre-income tax, the Gilded Age. They refer to that as a great golden age.
Right.
Of American business.
No. Originally, the federal government was exclusively funded by tariffs.
Yeah, it was all tariffs.
But at that point, nobody paid income tax.
Right.
The way they're rigging it, they won't pay income tax.
Right.
Richest people won't pay income tax. You will.
Or they'll pay so little that they'll figure, okay, well, we'll cut so little of our taxes and we'll make up for the revenue with tariffs, which are, of course, extremely regressive because the inflation applies to everyone, no matter how much money they have. Right. And so it's just a giant sales tax. I don't know who.
No, and you already had a very good argument that we have the asset bubble to end all asset bubbles going right now.
Right.
That you've got an asset bubble in real estate, in crypto, in stocks, in bonds, that everything is massively inflated. And this is looking like it could be the pin that pops all of it.
Right. Indeed. All right. Let's move on. We got a few more super chats, but we have also one more segment. So we'll take the rest of the super chats after the final piece of the day.
All right. So I hear they're going to be having a contest at the 92nd Street Y for the title of Typhoid Mary of Anti-Semitism. It's going to be Rabbi Shmuley and Howard Lutnick are going to be the finalists. Howard Lutnick insults European meat in bizarre Fox News rant. Okay, so not only does this video put to the lie the idea that Trump has staffed his cabinet with very capable people that you can trust to be making these kinds of decisions, it also kind of blows up the idea that you have to be smart to work on Wall Street. Hang on a second. Did I not put in the videos for this?
Yeah,
I
that's
did.
what I was saying. Yeah, I think you got it's all right.
Oh, I thought I did. All right, so go back to super chats.
Yeah.
I'll,
All right, I'll go back to some super chats.
I'll set
All
it up again.
right. Here we go. Hold on. Sorry, we'll do a take 2 on that, folks. Okay, it's me. Says these extraditions are domestic terrorism against political opponents to crush dissent. It goes hand in hand with using Jews to paint dissidents as anti-Semitic. It's how they stopped Jeremy Corbyn. Thank you, it's me. Appreciate that. Kate, thanks for the $4.99. Homan's original plan was a 40-day hold to prove asylum in front of a judge. What or who happened to Homan's original plan? That's a good question. That's a good question. They didn't have this arrangement with El Salvador on day one. The way this that seemed to come into place once Guantanamo proved, I think, too difficult for them. Because Guantanamo, they shipped the detainees out of Guantanamo because they were demanding to speak to lawyers, and the lawyers were giving them a lot of hell that they couldn't talk to them, and so they shipped them out so they could speak with lawyers off-site. But in terms of what you're talking about, yeah, they're moving so fast, I don't know the extent to which you could really rely on anything they said more than 2 weeks ago. I mean, we just heard about this CCOT, 3 weeks ago? 2 weeks ago?
Right.
Very,
Yeah.
very quickly.
All right, I'm good.
Oh, you're good? Okay.
Yep.
All right, here we go.
Okay, so you might assume that people who run big Wall Street firms like Howard Lutnick are not stupid. You're going to have a hard time believing that after you see this. Howard Lutnick insults European meat in bizarre Fox News rant.
European Union won't take chicken from America. They won't take lobsters from America. They hate our beef because our beef is beautiful and theirs is weak.
Their beef is weak.
Their beef is weak.
All right, so here on a more serious note, he went on with Bloomberg to talk about why Europe doesn't take our agricultural imports.
Does not treat our products fairly. They do not treat our companies fairly. They treat themselves incredibly well to the detriment of the United States of America, right? It is time for them to treat us fairly, and that is the point. It's not free and fair trade. Their tariffs are higher. The non-tariff trade barriers are incredible. Like, I'd ask you, why don't they take our beef? Why don't they take our agricultural products? Why? Because they don't want them, because they want to make the money themselves. Why is it okay for every other country to feel this way, and it's not okay for America? I tell you why. Because we were the world's piggy bank.
Okay. Now, it's hard to know if what he's saying is something he actually believes, if he doesn't actually know why Europe doesn't take our agricultural products. These people lie like they breathe. So who knows? But here's the reality. Importing American beef into the European Union is currently restricted due to an EU-wide ban on meat, which has been raised with hormonal growth promotants. The European Union has also restricted imports of American poultry due to its tendency to be washed with chlorine, a banned practice in both Europe and the UK. While in 2016, Sweden asked the EU to ban imports of live American lobster due to concerns over them being an invasive species. Genetically modified food and crops treated with pesticides banned in the EU for being toxic to humans have also faced restrictions. President Donald Trump unveiled new reciprocal tariffs on dozens of countries and territories on Wednesday, including uninhabited islands and a territory where the only notable settlement is a U.S. military base. The grown-ups are back in charge, folks. Now, the Maha movement is such a large part of the MAGA movement. I would think not only would they be sympathetic to the Europeans, but they'd want those kinds of standards here. I can tell you, having traveled in Europe, everybody told me, I was very curious because you eat a big plate of pasta, you always get logy, right? People told me, no, you have the pasta in Italy, you'll be fine. Yeah, it's true. Because the shit that we have in our food, they don't allow over there. Now, Lutnick going up and saying this, again, does he believe this? Does he really not know it's because we do things to our food that is illegal in the rest of the industrialized world? You can't sell things like this. I mean, it's not just this. Like, you don't see real food imports from America to Japan because the kinds of ingredients that you would have in American food, they just would not allow that.
Right.
So somebody commented here, Lutnick is desperately trying to sound like Trump just to grab 5 minutes of MAGA cult fame. You don't win a trade by crying that people aren't buying your product. It's the most pathetic victim mindset imaginable. If you think shipping chemical meat across the ocean is better than buying local, you're absolutely mad.
It's a good point.
Yes.
I didn't even think of that. Yeah.
Lutnick's tariff obsession is a disaster waiting to happen. His beautiful beef rant ignores EU safety standards, hormones, and chlorine washes aren't quality, they're risks. He's out of touch, and these tariffs will hurt American consumers more than help. I think that's true. I'd rather have their beef than our robust, strong beef any day.
Our beautiful, strong beef.
Weak beef, lads. Weak beef. In a sane world, we would neither see, hear, or have any dealings whatsoever with this. In any sane world, we would never come across Lutnicks, never know their names, and their thoughts would appear fleetingly on social media just before you blocked them. Yes, if you sit there and you think a guy like Howard Lutnick is where he is because he's smarter than you, well, this should dispel that. Our beef is strong, their beef is weak. That guy, you think he's really smarter than you? He's not smarter than you. He's more evil than you. He's probably willing to do things for money that you won't do. That's the common denominator of these Wall Street guys, of these Wall Street CEOs. They're not all as clownish as Lutnick. You know, Jamie Dimon comes off as a serious kind of a person, but they're all evil scumbags who feel comfortable serving and propping up a system that creates horrific inequalities that they're completely aware of, and they do everything they can to make sure that the people are not able to fight back against it. What kind of person does that? The average person watching this, man, if you had $1 billion, would you be able to like really hoard that money? Or would you feel like you have to help people with that money?
Right.
Like you really don't need that money. So what kind of person do you think has $500 billion and their objective in life is to get more? These people are evil people. Lutnick is evil. Is he telling the truth? As far as he understands it, probably not. He doesn't care. He doesn't care. It is all about getting an extra nickel for them.
Yeah, well, this is going to be the ultimate test as to how smart they are relative to the average person, because it's so obvious. I mean, this is just, I mean, it's a cringe example. Like, it's almost too cringe to be funny. It's not. It is funny. Yeah, beautiful. We have beautiful beef. Their beef is weak. I mean, it is funny. Almost too cringe to be funny, but not quite. They are betting.
I mean, he's a walking anti-Semitic stereotype.
Well, yeah, that's what I said earlier.
He's like the Ferengi on Deep Space Nine.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. They are betting that they can basically market their way out of, you know, whatever hellscape they are ushering this country into. What they're basically betting on is that they can convince the American people that we're better than every other place. We're just better. We have better beef than you. We're better than you. So it doesn't matter. We could literally just implode as a country. I mean, think of how this looks from the outside. Think of how this looks from Europe. They see America in total self-destruct mode, and yet their leaders are telling their people how much better we are than the rest of the world. You know, Lewis Black did when he did his first big HBO special. Probably wasn't his first special; it was the first one that caught on. You know, he talked about American exceptionalism. This was in the Bush era, right after 9/11, and sort of, you know, jingoism of America, rah, rah, rah. He says, think about it. If you worked at an office and a guy came into the office every day, and every day came into the office and says, I'm the greatest fucker here, right? What would you think of that guy? You think that was a crazy, a delusional lunatic, and a fucking asshole. Like, that's what you would think. That's what we are. We are destroying ourselves while deluding ourselves into thinking that we are simply superior to the rest of the world. Superior how?
Yeah.
On what
We are
basis?
so back, baby.
Yeah, we are so back. When the book about the Trump second term is written, it should be entitled So Back. That should be the name of the book. Because that is just the bullshit that we sell ourselves in. It is amazing how many people in the journalism and commentator space will just go down with the ship. And I use that term very liberally. I'm not talking about some of our friends who we've been frustrated with in recent months. I'm talking about like the real hacks, the real fucking scum, like the Jack Posobics and the Eric Dohertys and the Ian Miles Chunks. Like, how long can you go? Just selling people this jingoism as their quality of life deteriorates. How long can you do that? For how long do you expect people to go along with this? And this whole thing about, well, our beef is strong and beautiful and theirs is weak. This is just, it is mythology.
All right, we got to see that one more time.
It is religion.
Won't take.
Go ahead.
I mean, the European Union won't take chicken from America. They won't take lobsters from America. They hate our beef because our beef is beautiful and theirs is weak.
Our beef is beautiful, theirs is weak. That's it. That's it. You know, look, religion at its best is a sort of philosophy to live by and a source of fulfillment for people. At its worst, it's a bullshit story to put a pretty face on human suffering, right? And to get people to accept their own suffering, right? The promise of a better life after you die. Well, that's exactly what this is. Yep. They don't want our beef because it's beautiful, right? It's a bullshit story to explain away our own degradation. That's all that is. Being sold to you by an uber wealthy bloodsucker. I mean, is he dumber than the average person? Time will tell. Time will tell. Because if you look at a poll and you see the number of people who fall for that, he's got a lot of people fooled. Hopefully not enough, but quite a few.
Yes.
Yeah. That is quite the ambiguous note to end on, but that's the final segment. Tune in next time. It's a cliffhanger. We should have just done a Tony Soprano cut to black. Don't do any more super chats or anything. Just that's it.
We should put on our members only jacket.
Yeah, members only jacket. That's it. Oh boy. It's a me. Oh, sorry. Where we go? It's a me says the constant attacks on the left reveal that anti-capitalism is the only thing the imperialists fear. Extrajudicial deportations are meant as a threat, of course. Lyndon McLeod, thanks for the 100 Canadian dollars. Wow. Thank you. Says happy Liberation Day, fellas. Yes, indeed. Well, I see you're having an okay Liberation Day. You can make it rain like that. Thank you. It's very kind of you. AK499, say ma like the H in hat. Mahmoud. Yeah, that's what I thought I said. Not Ahmed. So Mahmoud. Yeah, like Bahrain. Yeah, I think I say that. Maybe you just don't hear it, but I intend it as Mahmoud. Sometimes I guess it sounds like a glottal stop. Kuznetsky Bassane, thanks for the $9.99. Herman Reed, thanks for the $3.16. Appreciate that. Miriam, thanks for the €1 donation. Race Car, thanks for the $20. Appreciate that, Race Car. I hope people realize from Elon's recent activity that the position of a CEO is not really that important. The other 99% of a company is what matters most. Well, yeah. Well, also, I mean, the way you have to look at that, too, is, look, he replaced himself as CEO of Twitter. He is still the driving, force behind Twitter.
Yeah.
So
It doesn't look like Yacarino has a lot of freedom of
right. I mean,
there.
exactly. Like, it all depends on where the clout comes from, right? Like, it could be just a figurehead. It could be more than that. It's not necessarily one or the other. It's a me. Thanks to the $9.99. I moved to Europe 6 months ago, and the food and lifestyle here has made me thinner, fitter, and healthier than I've been since I was a student athlete. And my U.S. diet was excellent, and the flavor, I'm sure. I have no doubt.
Everyone who moves here from overseas talks about how they put on weight, and it's impossible not to.
Yeah, and they probably feel worse. Gavin Hillock, thanks for the $5. When I first heard Americans mention grass-fed beef like some kind of luxury, I thought, what the fuck else would you feed them? Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Soylent Green. It's made out of people.
Yeah. Oh, I like this one. This is a good reference. What the fuck is this from, though? I know the reference, but I can't place where it's from. Maybe you'll also know it. The beef is weak. The beef is weak. You're weak. What is that?
Don't know.
There's a movie or a play or something.
It's like
that's
vaguely
from.
familiar.
The beef is weak. No, you're weak.
The collapse is accelerating.
Come on, DC. For $2, tell us what that was a reference. I wouldn't ask you. Normally, I wouldn't ask you, but since it's only $2, I'll ask you to, because it's going to annoy me that I don't know that reference. I mean, I know it, but I'm blanking. Don't forget that war with Iran is pretty much assured at this point. Imagine the economic impact of that. Well, that's another thing. That's the other thing. You got to march to war as well. Like, it's just a fucking death spiral.
I mean, this is where, I'm going up to Buffalo next month, and I mean, am I going to buy a house now in this country?
Right.
Like, maybe I should be looking more at Ecuador. I'll ask Whitney who our real estate agent is.
I was gonna say you can go live with the penguins, but you can't even do that. You'd be tariffed.
Can't even do that.
Yeah. Even the penguins are like, "What the fuck? The fuck do we do?" You guys should try and get. I mean, the idea like we're getting rid. Yeah, that one place where the only people living there were Americans. They're ripping us off. You guys should try and get Nate from Canadian Prepper on the show. It would be a really good conversation. Thanks for the recommendation, Noah. The Veins, somebody's read the everything bubble theory. Thank you. Con the Strike, hey DD, Greenwald isn't correct. First Amendment rights of American citizens do not weigh the executive powers to exclude aliens. Kleindust versus Mandel, 408 U.S. 753 from 1972. The government has broad authority to deny visas. Well, yes, they do. And when the executive gives a facially legitimate and bona fide reason, courts would not second guess it, even if it impacts First Amendment. I don't mean to be disruptive or disrespectful to the show. No, you're good. If what I personally think is at issue, please know I don't necessarily agree with deportations. Thank you, guys. No, I mean, this has been something that people have cited as legitimizing these deportations, which is the Nationality Act of 1952. So I understand that there's text in that would lend itself to an argument for this. And that's why I said in the segment, I said, even if you accept that, imagine that being applied in the other direction. Imagine the crisis that would cause. I mean, there's a reason why, the precedent you cite there is 1972. I forget. I would refer you to Greenwald's video he did about this on his own show, where he reads precedent that seems to fly in the face of that. I forget the exact. I think we covered it here. So you can either go back on our catalog or search his catalog. But thank you. Miserable Lib. Beautiful strong beef was once upon a time used to describe my legs. Thank you, Miserable Lib. Texas, appreciate that. Come on, who knows in the chat? Okay, it doesn't have to be DC. That's annoying me. The beef is weak? No, you're weak. Something. What is that?
I think it's riffing on something.
No, it is. It's riffing on something. It's riffing on the blank is weak. No, you're weak.
Somebody says Whitney lives in Chile.
Chile?
That's what she wants you to think.
Yeah. Yeah, right. Weak. You're weak. Yes, it's from Glengarry Glen Ross. The leads are weak. No, you're weak.
The leads are weak.
Right. The leads are weak. No, you're weak. That's it. Okay, I just had to Google that. That makes sense. They hate us because our beef is beautiful. It's the retarded version of 2025 of they hate us for our freedom. Yes. They hate us because our beef is beautiful. They hate us for our beef.
Just getting dumber and dumber, man.
Yep. Christian Fortin. We in Senegal have Ian Carroll free internets in case you guys need a safe space. Yes, thank you. He's everywhere. Thank you for that. Paul Chu says yes. Glengarry Glen Ross. Kate 999. Thank you for that. Anyone figure out what's on sale at the Boomer Casino, aka the stock market? I like that. The Boomer Casino. Thank you for that, Kate. I don't know what is on sale. There's going to be chances to, what do they call that? Buy in the dip. You buy the dip.
Yeah, I wouldn't play that game in this situation.
It seems like a dangerous game.
It's accelerating as the day goes on. I mean, you'll get your dead cat bounces. Even if you look at the depression, didn't just go down in a straight line at dead cat bounces. It's just the overall trend was down. Right. Russell 2000 6.22 down now. NASDAQ 5.71.
Wow, that is wild. That's pretty seismic. Dan Kelly, thanks for the $5. Says, thanks for a great show, guys. You keep me sane and help me through my work days. Keep up the good work. Turbulent times are coming.
Thank you.
Thank you. And yes, they sure are. They sure are, folks. So with that, we will close the lights on today's stream, and we will see you back here Sunday nights at 7 p.m. If you're in New York, come to Coho's on Saturday for the Jimmy Dore comedy show. I will be doing I'll be making my official stand-up comedy debut Saturday night at the Coho's Music Hall, jimmydore.com for tickets. Go grab them. They still have a few left. They're almost sold out, so not many more chances to grab them, but there still are a few left as of now. All right, folks, thank you very much for being here today. We appreciate it. Please smash that like button on the way out. Smash that subscribe button over on YouTube. Smash that follow button over on Rumble. Like I said, if you can become a member, dudissidents.locals.com. That helps us tremendously. You guys are very generous with the Super Chats today. If you just put one of those Super Chats toward membership, that helps us out in a huge way. So thank you very much for your support, everybody, and for being here today. We will see you back here Sunday night, 7 p.m. Until then, be safe and be well.
Courage!
Please clap.